Hello and welcome back to a brand new episode of the PICKASIDE podcast. My name is Joel Moran and I'm here with Andrew Velez and John Tortorelli. And this is now episode 363.
Yes,
in this episode, we are going to talk about Keenan Allen getting traded to the Bears, Chiefs signing Hollywood Brown, Titans signing Calvin Ridley, and give winners and losers of the free agency period. Fellas, a lot of wide receiver news has happened, and now we get to talk about it. How you guys feeling?
I'm doing great. Missing my brothers. Miss my brother Joel. Miss my brother Riv. But, you know, we got to do a job. They're over there having the time of their lives. They're in Florida. Joel is in Boston. He just watched his Boston Celtics. My guy Jaylen Brown put on a masterclass against the Phoenix Suns. And you guys see Riv on Instagram? Over here doing karaoke and shit, having the time of his life.
That's fire.
Yeah.
But hope the guys are having fun. Hope they enjoyed their time off. But I'm ready to talk some football.
Likewise, I'm pumped to be here. We got a lot of news, a lot of Steelers news too. I don't think y'all care, but it's been a busy day, and altogether it's been busy all season.
I've been telling you before we started the show, John, you fucking deserve this shit. You deserve
I don't know
it.
what you're talking about.
I promise you.
I genuinely don't know what you're talking
I'm
about.
thrilled that this happened to you, John.
According to the public, the Steelers are winning the offseason.
That's what I've heard.
That's the
That's what I've
perception.
heard. And I just had this conversation with John. I just laid it out for him. What is there really a win of? What? Talk to me, John. You got my quarterback who you loved to bash.
The argument for them winning the offseason
Is that they got a quarterback for $1 million?
Yes, they
Yeah.
signed Russell
What is
Wilson
impressive
for
reality?
nothing, and Steelers fans are saying, "Oh my God, we signed a Hall of Fame quarterback for nothing. This
I don't
is such
think
a steal."
Steelers fans are saying that.
It's a reason why he was signed for nothing. It's because he's not good no more.
And he also is getting paid $38 for my Broncos.
Yes, no matter
so
what
that-
happened, they're gonna
Any
get
team was gonna get
$39
him for a
million.
lick.
At the end of the day, the Steelers made some very good signings, and
And then you also traded away your best receiver. See ya.
for a 7th round pick,
Yeah.
an average corner.
Nice.
That's a
which
take
was
that people
a-
would disagree with.
They like
because
George
they think George
Pickens.
Pickens is better. Yeah,
He's definitely better. Pickens is most definitely better. But that was the one move that made zero sense to me because Deontay's to me, he's a top 30 receiver. And when you trade him for a 7th round pick.
So you
and I
had
look
two
at-
top 30 receivers
I
on your
look at
team?
the receiver market. Yeah, we did. I look at the receiver market. It wasn't long ago Marquise Brown's getting traded for a 1st round pick, and DJ's a better player. Now he's getting traded for basically pennies on the dollar, it feels like. So I'm not a huge fan of that move.
well,
at
you
all.
guys did get Russell Wilson another weapon. You got Van Jefferson, so he's on the way. He's on the way. That's another move as to why the Steelers have won.
Hold on.
offseason.
And also, they got a new punter.
Oh yeah, you're gonna need that next year. By the way, you're gonna need that. And Patrick Queen,
That was a great move.
amazing move.
$13 million guaranteed for a player who's just entering the middle of his prime. Look, he's not going to get to bring Roquan Smith and Mike McDonald with him, but Pittsburgh's had some really bad injury luck at linebacker, and knock on wood, I hate this is some corny shit, but he's never missed a game in his career. So getting someone who has been super available but also plays really good downhill. The Steelers have been physical at linebacker, and quite frankly, they just need a 3-down piece. So he's going to be a really good player. I don't know why you guys are giving undertone that was a bad move. That was a great signing.
The punter? Or
No,
Patrick Queen?
The linebacker.
Oh, got it.
Patrick Queen.
Yeah,
$13 million guaranteed for a good player.
We had the conversation already.
all you need.
You've been looking for that solidified linebacker since Shazier.
3-down linebacker is above
and
average.
Devin Bush wasn't that answer.
Oh, shit.
Edmonds, he's safety. I'm thinking of his brother. You just have failed to address that. But hey, you tried to do it this offseason. Patrick Queen is a good ball player. But was he good because he was playing alongside Roquan? Or is it also
that's when he
coupled
took his
with...
game to another level.
For sure.
You know,
But why didn't they bring him back?
isn't it alarming
Something
that
begs the
Couldn't
question.
afford to pay two
And then he
linebackers.
went in division. Interesting.
isn't it alarming that Patrick Queen had his best years with Mike McDonald as a defensive coordinator? He really took off once Roquan Smith got there. Mike McDonald gets the head coaching job of the Seattle Seahawks.
Doesn't want him.
He doesn't sign Patrick Queen, but you know who he signs? Tyrel Dodson, who filled in for Matt Milano last year and was pretty good. And is it a hot take to say that Tyrel Dodson is better than Patrick Queen and will be better than him next year?
That probably is a hot take. It's a hot take.
Linebacker is an expendable position, but Pittsburgh got someone who's proven. And I still don't know how Queen made an all-pro team this last year, but I think you should be grateful with a good player at linebacker and one that's healthy. Because you said it before, I mean, it's not just Shazier and Devin Bush.
Yeah.
Cole Holcomb's leg
Cole
snapped
Holcomb,
in
that's-
half,
yep,
praying for him versus
sure.
Titans. That was a brutal injury. And so they've been so unlucky. I'm just grateful to have someone who's good and proven to be good. That's
So
all I'll say.
Tyrel Dodson last year, there's some Tyrel Dodson propaganda. Once Matt Milano went down in week 5 of last season, Tyrel Dodson stepped up and played his part, allowing a minus 0.49 EPA per target as the nearest defender in coverage, second fewest among linebackers. Number 1 was Taki. Number 2 was Tyrel Dodson. Number 3 was Demario Davis. 4, Kaiser White. And 5, Robert Spillane. So, Tyrel Dodson was really good last season. And I'm just saying, I like him going to Seattle. It's very telling that Mike Macdonald chose him to build that linebacking core around.
Listen, man, I'm hoping for the best. You know me, I never will wish on the downfall of my brother's favorite teams, but I will say I am super ecstatic that Russell Wilson is your quarterback.
Not
because you deserve it.
I don't deserve this.
You deserve it.
Now, Drew, you mentioned Riv. He's in Orlando. Dehls, he's in Boston. Riv will be back Monday night. Dehls will be back on Sunday.
Tomorrow night.
We might record a podcast Sunday. We might not. It really depends. If we do, it'll be me, Drew, Dehls, John. He's welcome to come, or JC. Either or. It does not matter. But on PrizePicks, I just want to let you guys know, they have started putting out NFL plays for this upcoming season. I wish they had wide receiver plays because we could look at Calvin Ridley, etc. All these guys that signed.
We spoke about this on the last show when we talked about PrizePicks. They weren't sure about Russell Wilson, so his line was what? His play was 3,100. Is it still 3,100?
It's still 3,100.
Interesting. Now that Kenny Pickett's no longer on the team, that's a square I'm looking at.
And they have quarterback plays, as you mentioned. And we didn't get to this quarterback play on last episode, but now you're here with us, John. We got to get to it. Make sure you guys use code PAS for a 100% deposit match up to $100, by the way. Bryce Young, 3,151 passing yards, more or less next season.
I'll easily take the Moran Bryce Young yards. Last year, 2,800 without receivers.
Yep.
And this year, adding Deontay Johnson. But I also expect them to double dip in the draft. Take a receiver on day 2, maybe a running back as well. And with the play call and upgrade of Dave Canales, I think it's easy. I'll take Bryce Young more.
And Bryce we trust, and Dave Canales we trust. They go and they went out there and they brought him Deontay Johnson. I don't anticipate that this is the end. I'm with you, John. They need to do more to get him more weapons. But 2,800 in one of the worst situations in football. Hell, there's a reason why they have the number 1 overall pick that they ended up tossing over to Chicago. But this upcoming season, I fully anticipate now with Dave Canales at the head of the table, calling plays for Bryce with Deontay, that more is looking more and more intriguing as we get closer to the season.
I feel like Deontay Johnson has become underrated.
For sure.
Because the way he's talked about, people are saying the Panthers didn't really get a great receiver. They just got Deontay Johnson.
Jesus Christ.
Deontay Johnson is a great receiver, and he can be a number 1 wide receiver. Maybe he's not an upper echelon one, but he can demand number 1 targets and be a focal point of an offense that is good. Deontay Johnson, his open rating, which is meant to qualify separation on a per route basis. In 2023, he was number 11th amongst all qualified wide receivers. 2022, he was number 1. 2021, he was number 4. 2020, he was 3rd. 2019, he was number 2. This guy gets open at a higher rate than 90% of wide receivers. Bryce Young is going to love him as a target. And you mentioned it. He was close to this number with no wide receivers. You're adding Deontay. I still think they're going to get a receiver in the draft. They got 2 second-round picks. One of them will be a receiver. This draft is loaded with wide receivers. So I think Bryce Young is more, definitely more over this number.
I'm with you.
I'm gratefully all respecting Deontay Johnson because last year he could have easily had 10 touchdowns and Kenny Pickett could actually throw in the ball when he was open in the end zone. And he ended up with 5. And that was the big talking point. Deontay, I think, is a great number 2. And you look at what he did with Big Ben last year, 1,200 yards. And then you get to add in one. That was with Matt Canada as play caller, too. Now you add in Dave Canales as well. So I think he could be a top 20 receiver this year in production.
They
top
forget
20, top 15.
What Deontay was able to do when he had a respectable quarterback throwing him the ball.
A quarterback that was perfect for his skill set.
And I'm with you, but that also is Bryce Young, honestly. There's a reason why Adam Thielen was getting peppered with those targets over the middle of the field. That is what Bryce can do. And also, Bryce getting out of the pocket, you're going to give Deontay more time to get open. He's going to be looking his way a ton. Deontay Johnson, when he had a respectable quarterback in Big Ben, he put up an amazing season. He was getting peppered with targets.
That was his only year at Big Ben too, mind you. And that's Ben would just continue to hit him at the top of his release every single time he would break it.
Dude, you're right, because his rookie season, that's when Big Ben had his arm injury. That's a fact. Yeah. Wow. But then he goes, and now the last 2 seasons, we have Kenny Pickett. No slight to Mason Rudolph, who was pretty
Really
damn good
awesome.
for you guys
He was awesome.
at the end of the season last year. But we kind of saw him really blossom with George Pickens as opposed to Deontay Johnson.
Definitely.
But I still think Deontay Johnson's a great talent in his own right.
There's no doubt. You can use code PAS for a 100% deposit match up to $100. Make sure to support PrizePicks because it's supporting the Pick a Side podcast.
Absolutely.
Wide receiver moves were made. Keenan Allen goes to the Bears.
This is really the wide receiver episode.
Yes. Hollywood Brown goes to the Chiefs. Then we had Calvin Ridley go to the Titans. We're going to talk about Keenan Allen getting traded first because I think this was the most surprising of all these moves, quite frankly. The Chargers traded Keenan Allen to the Bears for a 4th-round pick. Now, how surprised were you that Keenan Allen is not going to be wearing a Los Angeles Chargers uniform this upcoming season, Drew?
I was very surprised. I thought that he would end up retiring a Charger because he's just been so consistent for them. I look at these past 2 seasons. I understand he did miss some time, but at the age of 31, for majority of this season, 31 years old, he puts up over 1,200 yards and almost has double-digit touchdowns, has 7 touchdowns. And this is missing time. This is also with Justin Herbert missing time also. And so it was just a crapshoot. It was a terrible situation over there in L.A. But why I understand the move is because Keenan Allen's getting paid a lot of money. And that's a big cap hit, especially for a team that you're going to pay an older receiver. You're trying your best to build for the future, especially with the new regime and Jim Harbaugh taking over at the helm. You have an identity that they've clearly put themselves, that's what their plan is. Yeah. We want to be a run-first team. Even though we have one of the best passers in the game, we're going to be a run-first team because Greg Roman is our OC. We're bringing in Gus Edwards. We're trying to build up this line. But getting rid of Keenan Allen and also cutting Mike Will in the same offseason, you're trying your hardest to make the Justin Herbert haters come out the woodworks and really violate him. I don't anticipate this to be an over-the-top statistical season for Herbert when you have Quentin Johnson. And I like Josh Palmer. Josh Palmer's actually a good wide receiver.
He was hurt last year, though. Yeah.
But you're going to send out Quentin Johnson, who for majority of last season was the butt of every joke for a majority of people talking about first-round wide receivers? I mean, go look at those first-round receivers. All of them are pretty damn good except for him, unfortunately, where we currently stand. I'm not fully out on Quinn. I still think it's a little too early to immediately say he's going to be a bust. But cutting Mike, cutting Keenan, I thought you'd keep one of those. Trading him for a 4th, especially at his age, I don't think that he goes undervalued or overvalued, but I look at the Bears side of things and think, hey, you gave up a 4th-round pick for a guy that's going to come in, immediately give you that veteran presence. You're going to play him alongside DJ Moore immediately. We're talking about one of the better wide receiver duos in the league. And Caleb Williams is going to be in there day one throwing to 2 stars. He's going to be in an amazing situation. And off rip, that's exactly what you want your potential future franchise quarterback to be in. A situation where he's comfortable immediately. A lot of quarterbacks wish that they had that. I know that you're looking at Bryce Young over there, and it's a drastic difference what he's going into as opposed to what Caleb's going to.
It's night and day. I mean, 2 years ago with the Bears, you look at the weapons Justin Fields had, and it wasn't much.
Nope.
And now Caleb Williams comes in. You've got Keenan Allen. He had a 200-yard game this last season. And you're pointing, he had 1,200 yards in 13 games. He was on pace for 15, 16. And for him to be your number 2 with their running game, I know it's probably going to take a step back without Justin Fields, but you have Khalil Herbert, you have Roschon Johnson. I think they're both better than DeAndre Swift. But the offensive line's growth as well. I think the biggest part of Keenan Allen going to Chicago is that they're building a complete offense. The Chargers side of things, it's obvious. He had a $23 million cap hit the Bears are going to take in. But this is one of those teams that can't afford to take that on for this year. And that's going to be so important for Caleb as a rookie because a lot of his issues seem to be playing on time. And with Keenan Allen, you want to be on time when he breaks the top of his release. So that's probably going to help Caleb just reinforce the right habits in the pocket. And if that's going to help him grow his first 2 years, you don't got to worry about Keenan Allen being gone long term because it's really a next year type of move, like a rental to me.
This is a great move for the Bears. You're getting Caleb Williams more help. You know, there's still some delusional Justin Fields fans out there that think that he's still going to be the guy.
I won't be mean to them. They're going through a lot right now.
They are going through a lot, but they deserve it.
Oh, goodness.
Because they propped up
Justin Fields a good dude.
MVP last season.
That's where I can't defend him.
He got an MVP vote.
They called Jordan Love
year,
trash.
Right?
And then just for Justin Fields to be replaced a year after.
You're right.
You mentioned a good
Kinda
point
cooked.
earlier. When we was talking about this move specifically, you said the Bears last year had the first overall pick. They missed out on C.J. Stroud, or Bryce Young, whatever you want to go
Are
with.
you going to talk about what it turned into?
Of course.
Goodness.
Of course. We are.
You're right.
But still, they missed out on drafting a franchise quarterback.
Yep.
They cannot do the same thing 2 years in a row.
No way.
And Caleb Williams, as much as I love CJ, he's a better prospect
He is.
than CJ
Better
and Bryce
prospect.
Young.
Mhm.
That's just what Caleb Williams is. A lot of the hate for Caleb Williams right now is rooted, I think, in toxic masculinity because of the way he paints his nails. He was seen wearing a dress. And a lot of people are making their judgments and their analysis on him as a player
Nothing
on what
to-
he
yes.
wears.
Ridiculous.
That's what's going on. But Caleb Williams is a great elite level prospect. And I think if he's in a good situation in the NFL, he will be darn good.
Let me ask you your opinion, both of you guys, on him not wanting to release his medical records to all 32. Now, I have my own opinion, but I'd love to hear yours.
I didn't have a problem with it whatsoever. And I feel like maybe people could have thought that he was acting egotistical, but all he was doing was spitting facts. There's only a select few of teams that can draft me.
For sure.
Therefore, all 32 NFL teams do not need my medicals.
Not at all.
I don't need to give my medicals to the Kansas City Chiefs. I know that the Chiefs aren't drafting me. They have Mahomes. That's how Caleb approached the situation.
I agree.
There's only a few teams that are in the running to actually get me. Those are the teams that need to know my medicals. The other teams, they don't need to know that.
Exactly. It's an odd situation because he didn't do the throwing or the running drills, and a lot of people had something to say about it. At the end of the day, to me, I don't think it's a big issue. I mean, this is the number one ranked prospect in the class. I don't know why people care so much, other than the fact they're just looking for something new to talk about. Because prospect fatigue is also a real thing, and people want to find a way to merit someone who's been propped up. They did it with many other guys in the past, and quite frankly, it doesn't matter. I really don't think anyone should care.
I'm with you. Listen, if he can keep that private and only one team realistically is going to draft him, it's going to be the Chicago Bears, why allow the other 31 teams to have access to that? Joel, you said it perfectly.
The NFL right now is kind of telling us how they feel about Fields because every quarterback has gotten traded.
Everyone.
Sam Howell went to the Seahawks. Kenny Pickett just got traded to the
Desmond
Eagles.
Ridder.
Yep. Sam
Desmond
Howell.
Ridder to the Cardinals. Exactly. Every quarterback has
class.
changed teams
been
that
a rough offseason
were
for that draft
that
class.
were changing teams. That draft class outside of Brock
Quarterback
Purdy,
class.
terrible. It was terrible. Brock Purdy
rough.
is the saving grace of that
the
quarterback
last one
draft
taken.
class. Yeah, exactly. So the NFL is kind of telling us how they feel about Justin Fields. I don't think this is a situation where the Bears are just asking for an obscene amount of draft picks. I don't think that's the case. And you mentioned something just now that you think the running attack could take a step back because Fields isn't there. I think it could improve because if you have a better passer in the offense, now you give defenses something to worry about, more to worry about on the
can't stack
back
the
end.
box.
On a
the way they once
statistical
would.
per game basis, I understand what you're saying. They may not be as
And volume
prolific in
and
that,
yards.
correct?
Their yards are going to go down.
But
Their efficiency could go up.
efficiency could go up for sure.
The Bears last
was
season,
efficient.
their rushing attack, they faced a top 10 rate of loaded boxes.
Yeah.
So if you have a better passing attack, those
It
are going to
opens
be
up
lighter
the
boxes.
entire game.
Exactly. So I think for the Bears, this was a great big time move. With the Chargers, I know it's very easy right now to look at what they're doing and looking at the receiving group and saying, man, it looks very rough. But I am a firm believer in who Jim Harbaugh is and
Absolutely.
the teams that he's built.
Never doubt him.
And I am going to see how all of this plays out because I don't think Justin Herbert come the season will be with this receiving core. I think they're going to add talent.
Malik Neighbors is coming in.
I think it's going to be Roma Dunze.
Okay.
I think it's going to be Roma
I don't think
Dunze.
Neighbors makes it.
I think Roma Dunze.
Gone at 4?
I think so.
So you think Marvin's gone at 3?
That's my belief.
Interesting. That'd be cool.
I think a Dunze fits them better as a run blocker, that physicality, and he's not as explosive as Neighbors, but he's still a great wide receiver prospect in his own right. The Chargers cut Mike Will. They freed up $20 million cap space. Jim Harbaugh and company got Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack to take pay cuts to stick with the team. So they didn't have to release those players. And now they're on the team next year. And that's huge, especially if they stay healthy. Keenan Allen is getting paid $23 million this year. That's his cap hit. They went to him and asked him to take a pay cut. He said no. That's his decision. You got to respect his decision. And therefore, they traded him. It's a 4th-round pick number 110. This seems like the perfect area where Jim Harbaugh can draft Blake Corum.
Okay.
This seems like the perfect area. So I think Blake Corum probably gets drafted with this pick that they got with the Keenan Allen trade. And the Chargers now, by trading Keenan Allen, they have $28 million in cap space. So if they kept Keenan, that just would have been $5 million. Yep. So now the Chargers are able to make more moves. You know, who's to say that they don't sign somebody like Tyler Boyd still, and they improve the receiving core, and then they use that 5th overall pick on a receiver. Now we're kind of looking at the receiving core in a much better light. So I think this move gave them more flexibility, and that's why I'm going to trust Jim Harbaugh and his direction, because I think that the Chargers will be a force to be reckoned with, and the culture that he is building will be something that we will all appreciate and understand is one of the better coaches in football.
That's a fine thought process to have. As I'm with you, Harbaugh, you need to trust him, especially if you're a Chargers fan. You've gone through some hell. This is the best coach that you could have possibly gotten. I'm with you. You put blind faith in him. But if you're telling me that if Rome Odunze comes to town, it's a different conversation. I'm with you. Or Malik Neighbors. Either which way they go about it, I will not be upset. I think both are very high-level prospects. But if it's Tyler Boyd, Quentin Johnson, and Josh Palmer, come opening day, we got a fucking problem. Drafting Joe Alt makes sense. You could put him at right tackle, opposite side of Rashawn Slater. Makes a lot of sense. You cannot go into opening day with Tyler Boyd, Quentin Johnson, and Josh Palmer. I am a fan of Josh Palmer. I think he is a very underappreciated talent. He is probably the best wide receiver 3 really in the game, yeah. Right next to a Tyler Boyd, who was right there next to him. It can't be your wide receiver core. You have to do better for Justin Herbert. Because honestly, we talk about how great Justin Herbert is, and I'm with you. Keenan Allen, Mike Will, Austin Eckler. He's had some good weapons to throw to, but this is simply unacceptable if that's what the lineup's going to be opening day. But in Harbaugh, we trust. Agreed.
I'm not worried about it, because with the 5th and 37th overall pick, you could double dip on receiver. You could take Joe Alt at 5 and then a receiver at 37. But the big thing is this is the draft class where you're comfortable having just one going in, and you can take 2 and come out just fine. And plus, there's a good amount of receivers. You mentioned one, Tyler Boyd, but Michael Thomas is one. You've got Josh Reynolds, even Odell. There's a lot. Okay, Odell wasn't healthy this last year, but there's a lot of different guys you can still get as that 3rd or 4th piece.
Just depth pieces.
Exactly. Someone to basically be a warm body, if you will.
I think the Keenan trade pretty much all it cancels that Joe Alt will be the pick at 5 or an offensive lineman. I think it's 100% going to be wide receiver, given they just traded Keenan Allen and they cut Mike Will.
And also left tackle, and they already have one.
Rashawn so I think 100% is going to be wide receiver. And then if they want to double dip in the second round, then that's on them.
Yeah.
But I think they're in a good position going forward. I mean, their defense is coming back. They re-signed Alohi Goldman, their free safety, who was good last season. They brought back Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa. They signed some beef in that defensive line and interior with Poona Ford. They got a body there. So, the defense is going to be solid. And then the offensive line should be much better. They should have an actual rushing attack with Greg Roman implementing a system. Now it's just about the receiver. And you have the perfect pick to draft one. So I think they're in a great position. You mentioned, one of you guys, about DJ Moore-Keenan Allen now becomes one of the best wide receiver duos in football.
For sure.
So I'm going to name you these wide receiver duos. You tell me if it's better than the duo of DJ Moore and Keenan Allen. Let's see where this duo ranks. The new Bears wide receiver duo ranks amongst the top NFL wide receiver duos. Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle.
Dolphins, for sure.
Easily got to go Miami.
Chase and Higgins.
Higgins.
For now, because this may not exist in a couple of weeks, but that's same exact tier as Dolphins. That's a 1A tier.
The next
1A group.
The next duo, A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith.
Eagles.
Philadelphia's got something special going on.
Smitty is unbelievable.
So we got 3 so far. Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel. I'm going with the 49ers.
Yeah.
I doubt Deebo's traded, but it's similar to Cincinnati, where it's like, this may not be a duo in a couple of months.
This is where the conversations can be fun. Because I still love Deebo. And obviously Brandon Ayuk, his work speaks for himself. He's amazing.
The best receiver in this group.
He is.
But 2 and 3 would be DJ and Keenan, and 4, I think, would notably there'd be.
It's a shame because when Deebo's healthy, he's amazing. When he's healthy, he can do what very few other wide receivers in the league can. I will go with the Niners, but this one is the closest one so far.
I'll also go with San Francisco's. Very tight. I think they just complement each other better.
Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp.
Fuck, you're pulling that heartstrings.
It's a very challenging one. Because a lot of their success, especially Puka, it could be.
Are we talking a healthy Cooper?
Play.
Healthy Cooper?
No, it's
at this point, it just feels like what Cooper Kupp is right now. So I think that right there makes it so the Bears might have the edge. Because who do you trust to be better next year, Keenan Allen or Cooper Kupp?
Keenan Allen.
If Keenan's healthy, because this is 2 seasons in a row we've seen Keenan miss extended periods of time. That's the only reason why. Yeah. If we're getting both healthy, I will go with the Rams.
And who's better, DJ Moore or Puka Nacua?
DJ Moore. I mean, I love Puka, special player, but he is elevated in a way from the quarterback play and coaching that DJ Moore has never been in his career. DJ Moore's a top 10 receiver in football.
Like, if I was the Rams, I might be like, I would rather have DJ Moore than Puka Nacua.
He just did this in year 1, though.
He did.
You're right. The production would easily tell you Puka, but when you consider what DJ Moore has went through from a coaching perspective, Luke Getsy, the Panthers coaching, and the quarterback play he's had, I think you've got to give the credit to DJ Moore.
I'll say this. Yes, Matthew Stafford throwing the ball to Puka Nacua does make a drastic difference.
Yeah, Puka's nice, though.
But he is.
Yeah.
But DJ Moore was not the wide receiver that we saw for a majority of that season without Justin Fields. Justin Fields and him were the... I'm with you.
Throwing the football. What do you
for
expect?
sure. That is what to be expected, but he was not good in that span.
He did, though.
He was not really as productive. Nowhere near.
Hey, look, he still finished with 1,385 total yards.
And how many did Puka have?
1,400. 15,
I thought it was 15.
Maybe total.
16.
Let me see what Puka finished with.
To break the record,
unbelievable.
Puka finished with 1,486.
And how many touchdowns?
6 touchdowns.
God, I mean,
but Puka had
and the most receptions of rookie season,
but
correct?
Puka had 1,575 yards from scrimmage because he had over 100 rushing.
I'm gonna be transparent here. I'm going with the Rams.
Of course you are.
I'm going with the Rams.
Not surprised.
I mean, it's a toss-up. Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison.
Jettis. I'm just gonna go with the Vikings because of Jettis.
I'm going with the
The
Vikings.
ceiling here and just how well Jordan Addison complements Jettis. I will also go.
It is a great yin and yang. I agree with that.
Mike Evans and Chris Godwin.
Oh,
I'm going with the Bears.
Comfortably
No
going
slight
with
to
Chicago.
Godwin. I like Godwin. I feel like he's become underrated. It's the Bears.
definitely got to go with Chicago here.
You are? I feel like
think
this
it's
is a
pretty
close
clear.
one.
It is
Mike,
close.
Mike Evans.
Clear? I can't say that.
Mike Evans or DJ
close.
Moore?
DJ Moore.
You think so? Mike Evans just had his 10 straight 1,000-yard season.
Yes, but DJ Moore's got a higher ceiling as a receiver, I would argue. And this
No,
is
he
important.
does.
I think Keenan Allen clears Chris Godwin.
He does.
Oh, he does.
He'll clear
That's the one that's a clearer. But Mike Evans and DJ Moore, you can make an argument for Mike Evans.
You can.
can,
I
but
honestly
it's
think he
based off
still
of
would
what
go
he's done.
Mike.
Yeah,
He still would go Mike.
It's just based off his consistency.
Let
but
me
not
ask you,
his
were you expecting
upside.
him to tweak like he did last season? Be as great as he was last season? No way.
I expect him having a 1,000-yard season.
I mean, obviously.
He finished with 1255 and 13 touchdowns. That's pretty
That's
remarkable.
fucking nuts.
Yeah.
So the duos I named are the harder duos. Let's see if any of these are duos that you're taking the Bears duo over, or duos that you're taking this duo over the Bears. Calvin Ridley and DeAndre Hopkins.
That had to be one you named. I would go with the Bears out of respect for DJ Moore. I feel like DJ Moore, at this current moment in time, is the best receiver of the bunch. And then Keenan and DeAndre right now is honestly a conversation. And then I just look at Calvin right now, who was better than I feel like a lot of people give him credit for last season. But I lean Bears.
If you asked me this in 2020, it would most definitely be Tennessee's group. But I have to go with Chicago
4 years
right
later.
now. Yeah.
I'm going with the Bears as well. Nico Collins and Tank Dell.
Fuck. I'm going with the Bears. But man, that Texans receiving core is going to be great one day.
Both of these teams, they went from
Like
having
one
no
of the best,
receiver
I should
corps
say. It's
to
already
two
great.
of the best duos.
Correct. It's already great, but one of the best ones in some time. It's so long as Tank can stay healthy.
Nico Collins is here as like a top 15 receiver. I think he's very close to that top 10 tier, honestly, and he's going to continue to prove that.
Love him.
I would have to go with Chicago, though. I just have just more. I think they deserve more credit for what they've done long term.
I'm going with the Bears as well. DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett.
When is it going to be JSN's time, man? I'm going with the Bears.
Also going to go Chicago comfortably.
If this was 2 years ago, maybe.
I'm going with the Bears too. Stephon Diggs and Curtis Samuel.
Okay, so let's move on.
Next.
Bears.
Curtis Samuel respect? We're not respecting Curtis
Let's
Samuel?
respect Curtis Samuel,
three.
one of the most underrated wide receivers in the league.
But the
We've
question
said
is,
this. Better duo.
It is Keenan Allen basically versus Curtis Samuel. And
Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers.
Yo, Jacoby Myers is really fucking
No, I know.
good.
He's underrated. Yeah, he is. He's good.
I would
really good
I would
player,
still go
definitely.
with the Bears, but that's a really good wide receiving duo.
What about Hollywood Brown and Rasheed Rice?
You know my opinions on both of those players. I hate that they're Chiefs. I like them both. I really like the both
Positive
of them.
Chief fan over here. I'll have to go Chicago
Calm
again.
the fuck down there, Johnny.
But-
all right.
But seems like this Bears duo is top four.
Yeah, it seems like they're in that area, top 5, 4 to 6 area, because the only names that we said were better
Dolphins
as a whole, the Dolphins, the Bengals, the Eagles, the 49ers.
Yep.
That's 4. And
Yep.
then number 5, Puka and Cup could be debated. Oh,
Yeah.
Jefferson, Addison.
Yep.
We put them we put them
that
there
top
too.
6, top 7 range, which is still
Yes.
great to be in. Especially, this is arguably the best situation a rookie quarterback has gone into.
Yeah, considering where the Bears have been the last couple of years. it's
I'm
a
really
huge
trying to
upgrade.
think. I get Andrew Luck did make
No, but that was
a
team
strong
filled
push.
with rookies.
That-
That was like 5 rookies during that.
for
team.
sure. I just look at a bunch of these first overall picks, and they've gone to dog shit because that's usually what it is. You don't get the first pick if you're not terrible.
Yeah, you never see receiving talent this good. And I also want to say this. I apologize to Mike Evans because he had a way better year than I realized.
That's all right.
At it.
All good. All
I
good.
look back at that 2022 season. I think that clouded my judgment.
Yeah, fair. The 2022 was like, he just kind of got there.
It was ugly.
But this past season was
an all-pro.
amazing.
Exactly. Yeah.
It really shocked the shit out of me.
He was better than DJ Moore probably this year. And I
Yeah.
said he had
Yeah.
a lower ceiling, so it's close.
The next wide receiver move that happened was Calvin Ridley going to the Tennessee Titans. Now, did the Tennessee Titans overpay for Calvin Ridley, and was it a bad move? So it's a 2-part question. You could answer it by each part.
Okay. All right. I will say this. In short, no. They did not overpay. I look at Calvin Ridley, and although I was very, very strong-worded coming into last offseason about Calvin Ridley and the Jacksonville Jaguars, I look at, in hindsight, how he performed this past season. And Joel, you said this to me very perfectly, and I do want to give you that acknowledgement of people's credit, people's image of Calvin Ridley is clouded because of fantasy football. Very well said. I agree. Because I was one of those guys too where I had Calvin Ridley in multiple leagues. He was so inconsistent week to week, and it kind of pissed me off and it kind of turned me off to the idea of Calvin Ridley and Trevor Lawrence. But you look back at it, after missing essentially 2 years of football, having over 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns, and think about what the numbers could be if he just cleaned up the drops a little bit. How many touchdowns do we see where he only got 1 foot in? 2 that just come to mind immediately? So we're talking about a double-digit touchdown season 2 years after missing 2 years of football? That's where I feel like I look at Tennessee. You have DeAndre Hopkins. Now alongside him, you have Calvin Ridley. You're trying to put Will Levis in a better situation. Now you're going out there, and I feel more confidently now with that 7th pick, they're going to go with an offensive lineman. Yeah. They need to continue to build that and continue to put Will Levis behind a line that's respectable. I think Ryan Tannehill's career is pretty much finished because of how bad that offensive line is. Yeah. But you go and you bring in Lloyd Cushenberry. At pick 7, I'm assuming it's going to be a left tackle, whether it's Fashanu or the other left tackle prospects or the other. I'm not there's a possibility actually that Joel is going to be there at 7.
He could be.
That'd be an amazing pick for the Titans for sure, John. Well said. But you bring in Tony Pollard alongside of Tajay Spears. That's a perfect duo to me where you have both of these guys that can essentially do both aspects at a very respectable level. I still think Tony Pollard is the better of the two, but Tony can receive, he can rush. You look at Tajay. He's not this bruising back that Derrick Henry is, but he can still take care of his opportunities near the goal line himself for sure. This offense is starting to shape up with some talent on all sides, and not just the wide receivers, but of course in that running back room. And Will Levis now is going to have a real chance for us to sit and evaluate him. I don't look at this as an overpay because you have a young quarterback that there is faith behind, and you want to see what his ceiling can be when there's actual respectable talent around him.
It's a very interesting discussion because Calvin Ridley's expectations this last year were be a top 10 receiver, have 1,400 yards, and not only be a Pro Bowler, but put yourself in all-pro consideration.
Yeah, for sure. One of the better receivers.
That's because of the fact he basically replaced Julio Jones when he was hurt in 2020 and was one of the most consistent players. And he had 4 games of 100 straight yards in that season to end. And this year, I think one of the craziest stats is that Calvin Ridley did not have back-to-back games of 40 yards. Think about that for a second. This is a guy that was supposed to be the focal point of the Jaguars' offense. The expectations were such.
Shout out to Christian Kirk, man. The real new.
He is a very...
He's not better than Ridley.
Bro, the real new, though. Christian Kirk.
Very underrated
that
player.
he's good. Yes, I agree.
Last season, Christian Kirk, when he was healthy, was the best.
No, he wasn't.
Most consistent. Put it there. He was most consistent for sure.
That's because they was using Ridley as a decoy.
That's not on Christian Kirk.
Yeah, but that's not on Ridley either. That
No,
he's
it's not.
being used improperly.
It's not. I'm not trying to slight Calvin Ridley. I'm just giving Kirk his credit. Damn.
But
Continue,
to consider
John,
the
please.
amount of talent that they've added to this wide receiver room over the last year, it's night and day because, hey, you lose Derrick Henry, you're going to have to build a brand new identity as a team. And this is where I kind of differ in opinion. I don't know how you replace Henry because, like, Tony Pollard is not in between tackles runner. I don't know if Spears is either. So this Titan offense is going to become a lot more drop back heavy. And for Will Levis,
Can I make the claim to you? I made it to him. They kind of saw it. With Derrick Henry, when he's on the field, what were the Titans doing?
Winning 7 games.
No, I just mean in general. When he's on the field, the play call, what's happening?
You're expecting inside zone.
9 times out of 10, it's a Derrick Henry run. But when Tajay Spears was on the field, what were we anticipating?
He can be used in a variety of
Probably a
ways.
play action pass, probably give him a screen, maybe majority you understood what was happening. But with Tony, you don't know what's happening at least. There's a little versatility in the play call. Similar with Tajay now.
more variety
You can exactly.
Okay.
So now the play call, the play sheet opens up a lot more.
Right. It's still Derrick Henry, though.
No, that's obvious.
That's where
That's
come.
obvious.
And for Will Levis, not only are they going to need to protect him, they're going to need to give him a lot of guys after the catch. And Calvin Ridley this year was underrated in a way because you talked about fantasy football and, of course, the Jaguars' expectations too. But to consider what he can be now 2 years back into the mix, and it's a new offense, sure, but he's going to have a lot of opportunity here. And I think he's going to get back to that double-digit touchdown rate just because of the fact he had easily the opportunity to last year. But like you were highlighting, there are probably 4 or 5 different plays where, hey, he's open in the end zone, he doesn't get that second foot in, or he has a drop in. I think that was just a matter of synergy between him and Trevor Lawrence, and he's going to find that Will Levis this year.
I feel like the Titans' offense is going to be more shotgun-based.
Yep.
I think it's going to be a lot of inside zone. They signed Lloyd Cushenberry, who he's not a power center. He's an agile center. You want to get him out in space. So I think that's how their offense is going to be played. Here's why Calvin Ridley wasn't overpaid. It's really as simple as this. And I feel like people blatantly take in misinformation, or they just look at the headline without diving further into what the contractual structure actually is. It's a 4-year, $92 million deal. $50 million is guaranteed, which is essentially a little bit over half of his contract. This is a 2-year deal. This isn't a 4-year deal where the Titans are stuck or they have to pay Ridley for 4 years on end. They can get out of this contract in 2 years. This upcoming season in 2024, Ridley's cap hit is going to be $10 million. That's the 27th highest cap hit amongst all wide receivers in football. Would you agree that that's around the cap hit where Ridley is, around the 20s to 30s best wide receiver in football? I think it is. In 2025, it spikes. $28 million cap hit, 6th highest cap hit. The receivers over him that have a larger cap hit, DK Metcalf. Between Calvin Ridley and DK Metcalf, is there a significant gap? I don't think there is.
I would take DK, but it's not significant.
Cooper Kupp is going to have a higher cap hit. Tyler Lockett is going to have a higher cap hit. I think between Ridley and Tyler Lockett, I would probably take Ridley at this point in time.
I know you're a Lockett guy.
I am a Lockett guy, but I would rather take Ridley at this point in time. And then the other ones that are higher.
He's like he's 25.
He did. Then the other ones that are higher, Tyreek Hill and Devontae Adams. In 2026, his cap hit is $26 million. The dead cap is $10 million, which means that if they cut him, they could save $16 million.
Okay.
Which means in the 3rd year of his deal, they aren't tied to him. If you are only getting Calvin Ridley for great production in 2 seasons, even if you're overpaying for it a little bit, it makes sense. The Titans' goal this season is to see what Will Levis has. In order to see what Will Levis has, you have to put him in a good situation. That's why they went out and they got Calvin Ridley. That's why they went out and they got Tony Pollard. You have now surrounded Will Levis in a situation where you do not have excuses for performing poorly. And they signed your boy Mason Rudolph, who down the stretch of the season was solid.
Backup.
And if Will Levis
on his name
isn't good, Mason Rudolph could come in and he could play well with these weapons as well. That's what the Titans did. Now, to your stat about he didn't have a game where he had consecutive 40-yard games, right? This is the stat that I think is a little more important in terms of how Ridley wins now. In 2023, 755 of his yards and 6 touchdowns were with 3 yards of cushion. 261 yards and 2 touchdowns were with less than 3 yards of cushion. What that means is that Calvin Ridley is significantly better when he's not pressed than when he is pressed. When Zay Jones didn't play for the Jaguars, Ridley was the lone X receiver, which means that he's not able to move alongside the line of scrimmage, so they're pressing him at the line. When he was able to move alongside the line of scrimmage, when Zay Jones did come back, he was much more productive. And in Tennessee, DeAndre Hopkins can be the X, Ridley can play the flanker role, and now Treylon Burks finally gets to play his natural role because out of college, he was a slot. That's what he was. The Titans drafted him and tried to make him an X. It failed miserably.
For sure.
Now Treylon gets to play back in his natural role that he got drafted as a first-round pick in college, being a big slot guy. So now you have Ridley in his best role. You have Treylon in his best role. I love Shige as a tight end. He's super athletic. Ridley's catch rate is 15% better when he's not pressed. His yards per target were 2 yards better, and his EPA was 0.22 when targeted compared to 0.06. So when he's not pressed, it's a significant gap. So for me, when I look at how Ridley's going to be using this offense and how he should be played at this point in time, it's in a flanker role. He's not a traditional true X receiver. And last year against man coverage, he had a 72% success rate, 80% success rate against zone coverage. Ridley was great. The box score stats might not showcase that he was one of the better wide receivers, but last season, in terms of how open he got and when he was used properly, he was one of the better wide receivers. And that's not even accounting for the self-inflicted stuff like the drops that Drew mentioned that could have made his stats even better. So if you're telling me you're getting a year of Calvin Ridley with no rust and then he's being used properly within an offense, I feel like this was a great move. And it's not an overpay in the first year. In the second year of the deal, it is an overpay.
Yeah,
but
year two's bad.
You have to do that when you're trying to add receiving talent to your team. So I don't think it was a bad move. I thought it was a great move. And quite frankly, I'm kind of pissed off at the Jaguars for not signing him back.
They would have had to give up that second, though. That's the real reason why they didn't bring him back.
You give up a third, though, anyways, so it's a difference.
You're going to have to,
when you invest that much,
now draft a receiver in the first round.
I get what you're saying. I feel like that's most likely what's going to happen. But at the same time, by not signing him back, they can use that second round pick on a receiver to look for that long-term answer and then probably draft an offensive lineman, which I feel like that's what they'll probably do in the first round, where they can either go grab a guard in Jackson Powers, grab one of those left tackles that is left over. Mims probably is going to be in that vicinity of where the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to be drafted. That would be a great option for them too. But I'm not too mad at the Jaguars for it. I do look at it where, why did you trade for him if you weren't going to bring him back? That's a fair thought process, especially when you need weapons around Trevor Lawrence. But I am anticipating that in that second round, that's when they'll probably address it. But what their priority needs to be is protect Trevor Lawrence.
No doubt.
Because he cannot be running for his life as much as he was last season again.
And he was playing with a lot of injuries. But if we can go back to the Titans for a second, I saw you mentioning this on Twitter. I'm grateful you did, because this is probably one of the stupidest storylines, I think, of this entire NFL all season. People criticize the Tennessee Titans for not paying A.J. Brown and trading him, and then signing Calvin Ridley to a contract at about the same number, $92 million. Thank you. Want to repeat that? Want to do that again?
Yeah, you're good. You can keep going.
Just say, thanks, Daddy.
Thank you. And I want to repeat that. The Titans got a lot of backlash for trading A.J. Brown for a first-round pick and not giving him the $100 million contract he was looking for. And then consequently, signing Calvin Ridley 2 years later to a deal worth a little bit under $100 million. And they say, you don't want A.J. Brown, but you want Calvin Ridley. And they overlook the fact it's two completely different front offices. And the fact that the GM who traded A.J. Brown got traded, but he got fired because of the fact he traded A.J. Brown for basically a receiver, and Treylon Burks has done nothing so far through 2 years. And their newer GM and Ron Carthen, just came in a year ago. And that bothers me more than anything. It's like, we're acting like this is the same exact regime that made these two moves when it's simply not.
No, it's not the same regime, and I actually trust Ran Carthen and what he's doing.
He's been cooking.
Yeah, he's been doing good in his first offseason, true offseason with the Titans. So I agree with you, and it's kind of pissed me off as well because, it's not the same thing. I guarantee if Ran Carthen was there a couple years ago, he probably signs A.J. Brown to the contract. that he's looking for. But I don't understand trying to clown current franchises for getting better. And I think Ridley makes the Titans better. It doesn't matter how you spin it, whether it's an overpay, he underachieved last season. The Titans got better. That's what it is. And the Jaguars got worse. That's what it is. And
Gabe
they're in the same
Davis is
division.
going to be taking his minutes. Nice. Great job, Jacksonville.
Christian Kirk, Gabe Davis. You like that
I'm
combo?
going to vomit.
You like
It
that
snaps.
combo?
I'm a Christian Kirk guy.
Gabe Davis is such a worse player. And talk about it, drops. I mean, that's the greatest example of a guy who can get open, but he's not going to catch the football half
But that's the thing about Gabe Davis, though, is that in his role, he's really good. And his role was going to be the Zay Jones role, just an X. And you're just going to run 9 routes and threaten the defenses vertically. That's his role. The problem, and this is really why Ridley wasn't good when Zay Jones wasn't in the game. Ridley, when Zay Jones didn't play, would be the lone X, and he would be the one that is threatening the defenses and oftentimes double teamed. You might ask, well, why couldn't they find somebody to fill that role? Or the other receivers that could have done it were Jamal Agnew. That's all. And you're not going to put Jamal Agnew as an X because nobody's going to respect that. So Ridley had to sacrifice in that role. So now Gabe Davis comes in and you find somebody who you know is going to play 17 games, you know is going to be out there, and he's going to play that role of a deep threat and threatening defenses so Ridley can work within the offense and get to his spots. So I feel like that's why I'm very high on Ridley, and I'm looking forward to see what he does with the Tennessee Titans. Hopefully Will Levis is consistent and he's good because you know the stats on him last season in terms of just how often he was taking sacks, they weren't the prettiest. So he also has that problem.
He does not give a shit in the pocket. And ironically, so does Rudolph, where they'll just stand in all the entire time. It's Matthew Stafford-esque, where it's like, hey, these guys will take the hits, but they're also going to put themselves in a pretty vulnerable state to get injured all the time.
Now, before we move on to the next topic, a quick word from BetterHelp. This episode of the Pick a Side podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. Now, folks, what would you do if you had an extra hour in the day? An extra hour to talk to somebody, to organize your thoughts, maybe just to get some advice. I mean, that's what BetterHelp is offering. It's an online therapy service. And if you're thinking about starting therapy, you definitely got to look into giving BetterHelp a try.
For sure. Listen, something you can do at the comfort in your own home. There's nothing wrong with admitting, hey, I would love to sit down and actually talk about what's going on through my day-to-day where it's making it a little bit rough for me. In today's day, there's a big stigma against it, and I feel like that's one of the big reasons why the I Am Athlete podcast stuck out to me is because they were big on men's health, men's mental health. And I feel like, especially for us, a majority of our audience is going to be the male audience. There's nothing wrong with sitting down and saying, hey, I would love to talk to someone to talk about my day-to-day struggles and hopefully progress to get past them.
Without a doubt, it's hard to be vulnerable with people. I think oftentimes the best way to grow is to be able to acknowledge stuff where we can improve. And I know for myself especially, it's very easy to get caught up in like everyday life between work, school, and family life. But at the end of the day, what helps us kind of move forward challenges is being able to internalize it and learn from it, quite frankly.
Sure.
It's a very important thing.
Mental health is important, like you guys are all mentioning. And I feel like there are just certain things that you cannot talk about with people that are close to you and that are around you.
It's meant to be somewhere else.
That's why therapy is a great thing to do because you can be your most vulnerable. You can say things in therapy that you wouldn't say to people around you in your everyday life. And it's not that you don't trust people around you. It's that just there are some things that you don't want them to know because maybe you don't want them dealing with problems that you're currently dealing with. And you don't want to put that baggage on other people. So I think that's where BetterHelp comes in. The great thing about it is that it's entirely online. So it's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. You fill out a brief questionnaire and then you get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. So definitely try out BetterHelp if you're thinking about looking into therapy. Visit BetterHelp.com/PickASide today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/PickASide. There was another big time wide receiver move that happened. I know you weren't happy about it, Drew.
I didn't care for this one.
You might need better help to air out your grievances with this move that you had that I'm about to mention coming up.
Unfortunately true.
Mr. Hollywood Brown was signed by the Kansas City Chiefs. Man, oh man. You have no idea how happy this move made me.
It was honestly poetic because I know you haven't been the biggest advocate of Hollywood Brown, but now you're kind of forced. Enjoy him.
I've never been the biggest advocate of Hollywood Brown.
I know.
Because I felt like you have overrated him.
I'm not. I haven't.
But in the perfect role, and when you play Patrick Mahomes, it's the perfect.
Respect Kyler Murray. Jesus
we understand.
Christ.
With Patrick Mahomes.
He wasn't. You're right. Both of them. Neither were healthy together. Bastard.
Rashee Rice broke out onto the scene last season, a rookie wide receiver. The Chiefs have now two-peated.
Ugh.
You saw Hollywood Brown. Travis Kelce's still there. Rashee Rice is still there. Now you have a true deep threat down the field. He also checks the box of dropping passes occasionally.
Enjoy him.
Which you need if you're going to be a Chiefs wide receiver at this point. You need to check off that box.
Respect Rashee Rice. He doesn't do that.
He doesn't. You're right. I feel like we're getting closer and closer to seeing the Patrick Mahomes that I fell in love with.
God, this is the worst shit that could have happened.
The one that's airing out bombs down the field. The one that any single given play, it could be a 50-yard touchdown. The one where, oh my God, he's scrambling to his right, cross the body.
It's a nightmare.
This gives me the best chance to relive those moments because over the past couple of years, Patrick Mahomes has been Tom Brady.
Big game manager vibes.
If you actually look into the numbers, Patrick Mahomes' ADOT was lower than Tom Brady's. So Patrick Mahomes was dinking and dunking.
The shit they crucified Tua for. This is what Patrick Mahomes has won 2 Super Bowls off of.
He does in the playoffs too. That's why.
And now you bring in a receiver who can get that number of average depth to target up. And I think they're not done. I think they should get another wide receiver. I think right now you can argue they're winning the offseason. We talk about all these teams that make big-time moves. Texans, Danielle Hunter, Eagles, Saquon Barkley. What did the champs do? Oh, they kept their team together.
They did.
They kept the band, and they're getting some reinforcements.
And it's looking like L'Jarius Sneed's about to just say, fuck it, I'm playing on the tag. Let's just run it back one last time. I am in agony because we dodged the Mike Evans bullet. That was huge. Mike Evans staying home with Tampa Bay. I love that. Then all these receivers start going to other teams. I'm feeling calm. But I forget about Hollywood Brown like a dumbass. And Hollywood Brown goes and signs with the Chiefs. And I have to say, I loved that text message thread between him and Andy Reid where he goes, lights, camera, action. Hollywood Brown's here. That was pretty cool. And it was also cool seeing Andy Reid say, think red today. But at the same time, trying to take my anger and hatred aside for the Kansas City Chiefs, awesome move. You're right, he does have an issue with drops, but at the same time, you pair him alongside with Patrick Mahomes, one of the best this game's ever seen at throwing the deep ball, and alongside Rashee Rice, who's great in the intermediate. Of course, Travis Kelce for all the great things that he can do as a receiving tight end in this league. Arguably the best. To me, he'll be always number 2 behind Rob Gronkowski. No slight to him, just Rob Gronkowski was different. But also, Hollywood Brown, his speed, his ability to take the top off. You can still run him in some wide receiver screen sets and just look at him after the catch as well. I'm not the most thrilled about this. As you guys know, I am a fan of Hollywood Brown. But this upcoming season, those feelings get put to the side, understanding that he is a Kansas City Chiefs. That love's gone, but he is going to be really good in this situation. He may not be this prolific receiver. I think there's too many mouths to feed. I think going into year 2, Rashee Rice is going to be their number 1 option. But having Hollywood Brown as that second option there, well, of course, outside of Travis Kelce, that's the number 1 option. I'm just talking receivers solely. Hollywood Brown's going to thrive in his role of being that deep threat, that explosive play guy.
It's huge because the Chiefs the last year and a half have not had someone who really can give you that second or third gear. And oftentimes Mahomes has to play methodical, take when the defense is giving him because that's what they lost ever since trading Tyreek Hill. But now that you've built the elite pass defense in Tyreek's absence, you regain the explosiveness to win in all 3 levels of the passing game. So to me, I look at this Chiefs team and it feels complete to me where Marquise Brown the last 2 years has just 1,200 yards. I think he can get 1,200 yards this year if a guy like Rashee misses time because of the amount of opportunity. And I was saying this before on your podcast, because Travis Kelce's turning 35 years old soon, the Chiefs have to build a thicker wide receiver core where it's not just Rashee Rice and a bunch of dudes. And quite frankly, with Marquise Brown, he hasn't had good situations. I like Josh Dobbs, but I can acknowledge one of the worst quarterbacks when he was starting in the NFL in terms of his passing. And then you look at his time in Baltimore, where Lamar Jackson's not really being activated as a thrower of the football. And so he's never really been put in a good situation in an offensive environment from a passing perspective. But you come to the Chiefs, and that completely changes. And he's not going to have a whole lot of pressure on him because of the physicality that Kelce brings, the explosiveness that Rashee brings. So he's no longer going to be that number one. He's going to be the third option here, which is probably the scariest part.
And I don't think the Chiefs are done because Hollywood Brown's on a 1-year deal. And they have a lot of guys they got to pay. Next year they have to think about paying Creed Humphrey, Trey Smith. We already saw what guards are going for. Robert Hunt got $100 million from the Carolina Panthers, and Trey Smith is just on a different tier at guard than him. So what's that contract going to look like? So this is a 1-year deal. So I think the Chiefs still got to draft a wide receiver because you have to have Rashee Rice and another rookie wide receiver on rookie contracts so you can maintain a good receiving core. Mm-hmm. This is Patrick Mahomes' intended air yards per attempt by year. In 2018, it was 9.1. 2019, it was 8.8. 2020, it was 8.4. 2021, Tyreek's last year, it was 7.3. That's when defenses started playing more too high and cover 4 on them. 2022, 7.2. And this past season, it was 6.5. So every year...
Glorified game manager.
Yeah, the greatest of all time. So every year, the intended air yards per attempt for Mahomes has been going down, down, and down. And with the Hollywood signing, this is a chance for it to go back up again. And like you said, give more juice to the offense because now it's not MVS. It's Hollywood Brown. And that's just a huge upgrade in itself on the offense. And hopefully they get Ladd McConkey. If they get Ladd McConkey, oh, man.
I was going to say, you have that option of Ladd, Troy Franklin, A.D. Mitchell if he doesn't get drafted by probably the Bills or maybe the Ravens. Xavier Worthy's another one. I think now with Hollywood signing, maybe they double dip into the fast type receiver. Obviously, Xavier Worthy, I feel like, put himself into first round contention solely off being the fastest 40 we've ever seen. But if he goes to the Chiefs, of course, that's another way that people will get hype about it because it's Mahomes. It's another fast player. Automatically, people are going to be licking their chops. But they're in a decent position to grab one of the middle of the best wide receivers.
They are, and I think they're winning the offseason. It's going to be another Chiefs Super Bowl.
I mean, if they can actually keep L'Jarius Sneed.
They're winning the offseason?
That's, yes. If they keep Sneed and
Chris Jones, the offseason, yes.
Upgrading the wide receiver position?
The free agency period, no.
Okay.
Because, the only sign is Hollywood Brown. But, like, the offseason as a whole.
I don't disagree.
Yes.
These
fucks. The only player they've lost is Willie Gay, and they can easily replace him.
Yeah, he
didn't even play, I think, in the Ravens playoff game.
Tranquil played very well anyways.
He didn't even play. Drew Tranquil, like you said, Drew Tranquil took his role.
Let me ask you a question.
He was playing really well.
Are the Bears in contention to win in the offseason?
Why? Because they signed Keenan Allen?
And they're going to bring in Caleb. And at pick 9, I'm feeling a banger.
Yeah, they're in contention.
You could go lineman, offensive and or defensive lineman to continue to add to their prolific defense that was last year.
Fashanu at pick 9.
Fashanu would be fire. I still think Quinyon Mitchell, I wouldn't hate that also alongside of Jalen Johnson. Maybe you go and you draft an interior defensive lineman. You go and you could maybe draft an edge. Maybe a Dehls Turner comes to mind. You could go at pick 9. Brock Bowers is a real possibility here.
Oh, that'd be filthy.
Like, bro, they have so many ways that they could go. I'm all in on the Bears this offseason.
It's all about the jump they make, because with getting Caleb and drafting another blue chip prospect with the 9th overall pick, last year they won 7 games. So with all that talent, I'm expecting them to be a 9-10 win team this year.
It's not crazy.
But the NFC North is tough.
You got
the Lions who are in contention for one of the better free agencies. They just signed DJ Reader. We're going to talk about better free agencies in a bit. And then you got the Green Bay Packers. They signed Xavier McKinney. That might have been the best available player to go to a team. Like, that might have been one of the better signings this offseason just in terms of need for a player. Because, like, Saquon was great for the Eagles, but, like, did the Eagles need a running back? I don't think they needed a running back.
That was a reach for giving them a crown at something, but fine, I understand. They did need a safety. Xavier was a great addition.
Because what else did the Packers need to sign?
That's fair.
They don't have a hole.
They don't
They don't need
outside of
a number-
safety.
Yes, that
Quay
was
Walker,
the ones.
Quay Walker developed last year, so they have a linebacker.
I was going to say
They could also-
linebacker comes
yeah.
to mind.
They could improve at linebacker, but the offensive line is solid.
Really good.
The receivers,
They don't need a wide receiver
they don't
one.
need
They
a
have
wide
so
receiver
many
because
If Christian Watson can be healthy,
Exactly.
Dontavian Wicks season, baby.
enough.
We're all for Christian Watson.
Four
Jaden
receivers.
Reed, that dude's
really
a bucket.
Listen, we're all for Christian Watson.
No, you're not.
Why?
You know you're not out.
Christian
'Cause of
Watson,
his health?
no, not
Yeah,
because of
that's
stuff.
really what it is.
Christian Watson, I think, is great in his role. Like as a deep threat in the defenses, I think he will
We're
be.
off of Dontavian Wicks.
He would be awesome in that. I am off the idea that Christian Watson can be a high level number one receiver.
Oh, I don't think any of us believe that.
I know, but I think
There can only be
Dontavian
so
Wicks
many from
can.
that
I don't know,
draft
man.
class.
Rookie season.
You think Dontavian Wicks
I think
can?
Dontavian Wicks can. Dontavian Wicks was the number one rookie against man coverage this past season. The way he moves and gets open is very Devontae Adams like.
So he can be better than Puka Nacua.
Don't put me on the spot like that.
I'm just asking a question.
I'm just saying that
Don't put me on the spot.
Dontavian Wicks gonna put himself in some conversation.
He'll be better than Jaden Reed next season.
He will.
Okay.
I think he will.
Okay.
There are more
Because
games.
Jaden Reed was overly impressive down the stretch of the season.
Jaden Reed is awesome. There are more games that I see from the Packers where I say Dontavian Wicks is just the best guy on the field, and if he got more reps, he will show that. Like I think he is a 1,000-yard receiver.
So if they traded Christian Watson, you'd smile?
it wouldn't matter to me. They traded him, quite frankly.
But that would just mean more opportunity.
It would mean more opportunity. Right now, the receiving core is what? It's Jaden Reed,
Christian
Watson,
Dontavian.
Romeo Dehls.
Romeo Dodson.
And Romeo
Okay,
Dodson.
yeah. So if they traded Christian Watson, they still got 3 really good receivers.
Yeah.
It really wouldn't move me.
Romeo's the worst of the 4?
No, I think Christian Watson's the worst of the 4.
You know, it's crazy too. Not one
He's
player.
definitely not the worst of the 4.
No, Romeo Dodson is solid.
He is a solid player.
He's just gonna give me a steady floor.
They have. It's such a unique wide receiver.
There's no way I can say
Their
Christian
skill sets
Watson is
really
better than
mesh
Jaden
well.
Reed.
It's
But
like
this
all
year-
above. They're all above average wide receivers. All
This
of
year,
them.
not one player on their team had 1,000 yards from scrimmage.
I know.
Romeo Dobbs had the
Same
most
with the Chiefs,
yards,
I believe.
receiving.
What's that?
Romeo Dobbs had the most yards receiving on the team.
Rasheed Rice had 920, 930 something though. He was close. I was just looking at it actually. Yeah, 938.
Dontavian Wicks might have been number 2. It might have been him or Jaden Reed. Let me look at it right now. Okay. Oh, my bad. Jaden Reed was number 1, 793. Romeo was 674, and Wicks was 581.
How many games did Christian Watson play?
Christian Watson played 9.
And had
He had 422.
didn't he have that great game against the Lions? The game that you keep reminding me about.
Oh no, he had that game, and then the game against the Chiefs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The game against
so
the
against
Chiefs
the
was
two
electric.
best teams that they played.
Or it might have just been a great play against the Chiefs. because
Whatever.
He mauled somebody, but let me look at his game log from this past
No,
year.
Yeah,
I
he
know
had 2
it was-
TDs and 71 yards
Against the Chiefs?
That was the last
Yeah.
game he played before he hurt his hamstring.
That is
Yeah.
tragic.
Playoffs.
So when he was
71 yards
finally
to the
cooking up,
Yeah.
and he has the audacity to say he's the worst.
He had a 90-yard game, then a 70-yard game, and got hurt right before
Yeah,
they were trying to
but
make that playoff push.
Then you got to look at the other games. Against the Lions, 25 yards. Against the Raiders, 91. He was good.
The Lion game-
Against Denver, 27. Against Minnesota, 33. Against the Rams, 37. Against the Steelers, 23. Against the Chargers, 21.
All right, now
Against the Lions, 94. And against the
21
Chiefs,
and a
71.
touchdown. Don't forget that he went on a 3-game heater of 4 touchdowns in 3 games, and then gets hurt with the
He
hamstring.
wasn't healthy to start the year, and he wasn't healthy to end the season, and he still finished with a very good 4-game stretch in the process.
I think that he's the worst of the 4.
No, he's not.
You're not going to.
He's the most unreliable, you could say.
That matters.
It does.
But
availability is a strong ability.
He, to me, is not better at getting open than Dontavian Wicks. Dontavian Wicks lined up one-on-one against a corner is the best at getting open. That's a fact. That's a fact. So I'm looking at Dontavian Wicks.
He's bad good.
I'm looking at Dontavian
He's good.
Wicks.
He's really good.
This is his snap count in, because I told you I think he played 15 games.
Uh-huh.
So in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, in 9 games, his snap count was below 50%. In 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, in 6 games, his snap count was above 50%. And in those games, 97 yards against Tampa Bay, 61 yards against Chicago, 45 yards against the Saints, and then 20 yards against the Giants. But his games were great too. You know, he had 91 yards against the Chargers. He was the reason why they won that Chargers game. He broke a tackle and then almost took it to the house, and that led to the Packers scoring. And then in the playoffs, I think he had the best game, arguably. Like the touchdown he had on who was it again? I think it was Stephon Gilmore, one of the two. You know, I think Wicks is the best receiver though, and I think he's going to prove it next year. I'm
it's
very
a
high
hot
on
take
Wicks
because of how unknown he is to the public still, but he is a very good player, and I think it's just going to come down to really I don't really know because they have 4 really good receivers to me, all in their first or second season. So it's the most unique receiving core in the sense that they may never have a number 1, but they've got a lot of awesome number 2s in the making.
What a good thing about the Packers is that, I mean, they're, like you said, they're young. They're all pretty much unknown in terms of just what the ceiling or the potential can be. So, you know, Christian Watson is still young. He can still be the best here. Just as of what I saw last year, he just was not. It's as simple as that.
Calling the worst was crazy.
It's just they're all good. Am I going to call him worse than Romeo Doubs? Romeo Doubs was the most consistent, arguably. And then am I going to say he's worse than Jaden Reed?
No.
So it's between him and Wicks. And to me,
Romeo definitely
Wicks
is
was
conversation.
Better. It is a conversation. So I'm looking at PFF here. Let me see if they agree with me with Dontavian Wicks. Let me see amongst wide receivers that got 50 targets. Let's see where Dontavian Wicks.
This brother not
ranks.
top 50, bro.
Let me see. I don't even think a Packer is in the top 50.
I feel like you're really channeling your inner Billy Bean today with
okay.
Tyrel Dodson and Dontavian Wicks love.
The number one, the Packers' best receiver,
we get
according
that.
to PFF grade, was Dontavian Wicks, actually. He was 26. He was under Deontay, Tyler Lockett, Drake London, Stephon, Devontae Amari. So, you know, the top receivers in the league pretty much.
You need that reception perception on Dontavian Wicks yesterday.
Oh, he already released it.
Oh, did he drop it?
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
No, he's one of the better players against. He was one of the better ones against man coverage last year.
Okay.
Yeah, so he's really high on Dontavian Wicks too. He was over Michael Pittman, Chris Godwin, Khalil Shakir. Let me look at the next best Packers receiver on this list. So just their PFF grade. So, you know, this isn't a perfect science, but it is at least something to take into account. Romeo Doubs was 37. Jaden Reed was 38. Now, let me look for Christian Watson. Christian Watson was 55th. So, in terms of the grade, I'm not that far off.
Okay.
In terms of the grades,
Come on.
I'm not that far off.
Who does PFF have as the best receiver in football?
Oh, fuck.
You close it out.
Sorry.
Convenient.
Let me get it back.
Yeah.
The best receiver in football, minimum of 50 targets.
Mm-hmm.
It's still loading on my screen, but it's here now. Okay. Tyreek Hill is 1. Ayuk is 2. Nico Collins is 3. Amon-Ra is 4. 5 is Jefferson. 6 is CeeDee Lamb. 7 is Jalen Waddle. 8 is Puka. 9 is A.J. Brown. 10 is DJ Moore.
Now, let's just go off of this. So, according to PFF, CeeDee's not a top 5 receiver. Isn't that something?
Well, I think you can make an. I don't know what this fascination with CeeDee Lamb is.
What? What do you mean you don't know?
CeeDee Lamb is an elite receiver, but Tyreek Hill's better. Tyreek Hill's better.
Okay. Jetta's
Justin Jefferson is better.
Okay. Honestly, he has an argument for 3.
A.J. Brown is an argument.
It is an argument.
Brandon Ayuk is an argument too. Amon-Ra is an argument too.
Hey, you're talking to the right guy here.
I would put CeeDee Lamb above Amon-Ra, but I'm just saying a lot of these guys are arguments.
CeeDee Lamb, didn't he have the most yards last season as a wide receiver? Remember when they were talking about Tyreek Hill having 2,000 yards and CeeDee hawked him?
I guess it's just because of the limited role that CeeDee Lamb plays in the slot, whereas all these other receivers, with the exception to Amon-Ra, play on the outside. And so they find more value in that outside the boundary type of ball winner.
Yeah, so CeeDee had the second most yards. I think it's important to note the target share, though. I think CeeDee's target share was 37%.
Who was number 1? Tyreek?
Tyreek target share.
No. Yards.
Number 1 was Tyreek.
Well, how many did he have? Did he have
1861.
So
Okay.
CeeDee was second then.
CeeDee was
17?
off by 2 yards.
Oh.
Yeah.
Are they taking the playoffs into account?
This is taking the playoffs into account.
All right, now that makes sense.
So just regular season, if you just
Tyreek had 50 more total.
And
15
regular
more
season?
total yards?
Yes.
So, yeah, Tyreek Hill had more yards than CD.
Okay.
But I think there's a stat where they show you the target share. And I know that CD Lamb's target share was like
I bet it was
close
ridiculous.
to 40%.
I mean, why would they not force it to him?
Well, it's a combination of he's really good
He gets open like hell.
and they don't have anybody else.
Correct.
Really. So like his target share is going to be more than Ayuk. But if you put Ayuk in that similar system and situation where he's getting peppered with targets, the numbers will be there for him too.
So you're saying that Ayuk needs a quarterback not named Brock Purdy?
No, I'm saying Ayuk, if he's not surrounded by monstars,
Okay. I was just wondering.
he will get more targets.
I agree with that.
Even if he is with Brock Purdy, it doesn't matter. It's really just about the
I didn't
targets.
say Brock Purdy broke onto the scene last year and this year because of Brock.
We're going to move
And
on
also because of
to
him.
winners of free agency / best deals. We're going to give our winners first. Teams that you think won in free agency. Who were they? John, I'll start with you.
My number one winner would have to be, in a vacuum, the Kansas City Chiefs, because of the fact they kept Snead and Chris Jones, obviously, while adding Marquise Brown. But to be fun, I want to take the Carolina Panthers and give them their credit because they have made a lot of moves this offseason. But the two ones which make the biggest difference to me are, one, signing Robert Hunt to a pretty huge contract, but the guard market has really gone up quite a bit last year. And then acquiring Deontay Johnson for Dante Jackson and a 7th-round pick. We talked about Deontay before. I think he's going to be huge. And if we're excluding the Dave Canales hire, fine. But they've also made a couple of other moves. A'Shaun Robinson from the Giants, recently playing the Rams on their Super Bowl winning team on the defensive line. They made some other moves. Damian Lewis from the Seahawks, not the best of starting guards, but they are making a concerted effort to upgrade the offensive line. And protecting Bryce Young should probably be their number one priority.
For sure.
But the very close second, like directly attached,
Get him a
is
weapon.
getting him warm bodies at wide receiver. They got him one. If they could do that again in the draft, I think the Panthers have to be at the top of the list.
I respect you acknowledging them. I feel like people look at the Brian Burns move and it kind of gives them a stomach ache, which is fair. But all the moves that you mentioned, again, Robert Hunt, I've been vocal about for a couple of years now. He's one of the better guards in the game. It was shown in the money that the Panthers did bring him. I thought that was a very strong signing. And then, of course, the trade for Deontay Johnson, that kind of overemphasized. I know that's not free agency, more off-season. But right now, they have a clear picture of what they want their future to be, and they're executing that plan.
And sorry, to add to that, they have lost Frankie Louvo as well as Brian Burns. And it is not great to lose 3 of your best defensive players.
For sure.
It doesn't matter for the Panthers. The one thing that does matter is how Bryce Young develops, and everything else is secondary to me.
Yep.
You know, you can have these amazing defensive pieces the way they did in 2021. They won, 4 or 5 games that season. And so it's really all about, hey, it really does hurt to lose an elite pass rusher like Burns. But at the end of the day, if we're going to have that elite pass rusher and Bryce Young's never going to develop, it doesn't matter.
And listen,
I'd rather move on from that pass rusher.
They have their first-round pick next year. If they're bad, at least they control their own destiny. So that's a little silver lining there too. But a couple of winners. Let's go over the obvious one. Atlanta Falcons bringing in Kirk Cousins. We've had this conversation multiple times already. They were seemingly a quarterback away. Last year, they almost won the division with Desmond Ridder and Taylor Heineke. And now they have Kirk Cousins, who probably is one of the more underappreciated quarterbacks in this game. Fringe top 10 quarterback, was on his way to be one of the best statistical quarterbacks last season before the torn Achilles, But then, of course, bringing in Darnell Mooney as your number 2 option next to a Drake London. And, of course, you still do have Kyle Pitts there, but I'm strictly talking wide receiver. Bijan Robinson. I mean, the Atlanta Falcons team is going to be fun to watch. We're going to talk about the Detroit Lions, too, of course. I know Joel was giving them some love earlier on. But their main holes were defense. Strictly in the secondary, mainly in the secondary, too. They go and they trade for Carlton Davis, giving up a 3rd-round pick. They go and they re-sign Emmanuel Mosley. You do lose C.J. Gardner-Johnson, which kind of sucks, but he essentially didn't play for them last season. He was able to come back in the playoffs, which was huge, but he really did not play a majority of the season, so it's kind of bittersweet that he kind of moves on, but you already experienced life without him. I look at Detroit, and they go and they bring in the DJ Reader also to add to that line. The fact that they're really solidifying that defense. On the offensive side, we got shit covered. We have Jared Goff, we got Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, and our backfield is one of the best in the game with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. Our offensive line, we lost a couple pieces, but we were able to still retain Graham Glasgow. Bringing him back was huge, of course. I look at Detroit. They're still pushing themselves as being top 2 team in the NFC for me. And the last winner I'll go over, there are a few, but I'll save a couple for Joel, I'm assuming. One's going to be the Tennessee Titans. I was vocal about it on the last show that we had, but they had a clear goal. They knew what they needed to address. We needed some offensive line help. We bring in Lloyd Cushenberry. We're going to draft an offensive lineman most likely at pick 7. We need some wide receivers alongside DeAndre Hopkins because Treylon Burks, where he has talent, he has potential, he's not able to stay on the field, unfortunately. Let's go out there and get a Calvin Ridley. We're going to lose Derrick Henry, but you know what? Let's get some versatility in this offense. Let's get Tony Pollard out there. We needed some secondary help. Let's bring in Chidobe Awuzie. They addressed a lot of concerns. I love what Tennessee has been doing this offseason. They're in a new regime now. They're trying to figure out what they want to be, and now they get to see the potential of Will Levis like we spoke about already. Tennessee Titans, real winners for me for sure.
I separated my winners into 2 categories. It was the teams that I felt like won the free agency period and teams that I feel like they didn't necessarily win, but they improved.
Okay.
I'm not going to double dip on the teams that you guys went with. So the first team I got up is the Minnesota Vikings. They signed Jonathan Grenard, Andrew Van Ginkel, Blake Cashman. They signed Aaron Jones. The big question mark with them is who's going to be the quarterback. Right now, Sam Darnold is listed to be the starter, but I think he's the bridge. If they trade up in the draft and select their future franchise quarterback, he will be put in a great situation to succeed with Minnesota. Minnesota lost to Neil Hunter, but you replace him with 2 really good edge rushers. So I feel like they definitely were one of the winners in the offseason. Another team I want to mention, I don't feel like they're getting enough love because a lot of the PR about them has just been about losing players. But I think it's the Miami Dolphins. Looking at all the moves they made. Xavier Howard, they release him. They signed Kendall Fuller. You signed Jordan Poyer. You signed Shaq Barrett, who is an all-right player because they lost Van Ginkel.
Need depth.
You needed some depth. You signed Shaq Barrett. Jonnu Smith at tight end.
Absolutely.
Jordan Brooks is an upgrade over Jerome Baker. I love Jordan Brooks. He got to stay healthy, but he's a very good linebacker. The offensive line is still in question because you lose Connor Williams and you sign Aaron Brewer to take his place. Aaron Brewer is a below-average player. But you look at the Dolphins' offensive line last year, it was terrible all around. And they succeeded because they got the ball out quick, and that was their offensive scheme. So I feel like the Dolphins did a lot to shore up some holes that they lost. The interior defensive line is still a massive hole because Christian Wilkins is an elite player. But with their first-round pick, they could select one of those guys. Jerzon Newman is somebody that comes to mind. So the Dolphins, I feel like, did a really good job at just replacing talent that left. And a team I'm going to mention, I don't know if any, did you mention the Atlanta Falcons? Did you mention the Atlanta Falcons? You did. Did any of you mention the Tampa Bay Buccaneers?
I did not.
I was going to, but figured you would shed some light on it.
Yeah, I'm going to mention the Tampa Bay Buccaneers just because they re-signed their players. Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans. They signed Bryce Hall, who they lost Carl Davis, so now Bryce Hall is going to play for them, and he's probably going to start. They bring back Jordan Whitehead, who I think is a good safety. So I feel like they definitely were one of the winners in the offseason because they went from a team that made the playoffs to still trying to be competitive instead of just saying, we're going to let all our players walk and we're just going to rebuild. And I feel like it's a good sign and it's a good precedent that you're setting for your organization to remain competitive.
You know who I was going to include in this conversation prior to today's events? The Rams. Because what I thought that they needed to address was that offensive line. Yeah. They go out there, they sign Jonah Jackson, they re-sign Kevin Dodson, and then you lose arguably the best defensive player of our generation.
That's the same thing that I was thinking. You know, the Rams were winners, but then once Aaron Donald retired, it's too big of a hole to replace. It's going to be hard to win the offseason at this point.
This was a punch to the stomach.
The teams that I don't think you guys mentioned that I kind of...
There's 2 we haven't mentioned yet.
I had in my list of improved, the Washington Commanders.
Okay.
Austin Eckler, Bobby Wagner, Frankie Louvu, Tyler Biadish, Jeremy Chin, Dorrance Armstrong. I mean, you can say that, but Frankie Louvu is awesome. Yeah. Jeremy Chin is awesome.
I'm with you.
The versatility in that linebacking room that now Dan Quinn has to play with, he loves to play in dime coverage. Mm-hmm. I feel like it's there. Jeremy Chin is a safety, but he's like more of a bigger, faster linebacker. He can play linebacker. He's going to play in the box. So I feel like, you know, these aren't big-time names, but the Commanders got better. And that's what I mean when I categorize them as a team that improved. And then the New York Giants, I think they got better.
A lot.
You know, John Runyon, Brian Burns, Devin Singletary, Chris Manhurts is the blocking tight end.
One of the better right tackles in football.
Exactly.
Big time.
So now you can move Evan Neal to guard, and your offensive line. The Giants have signed offensive linemen to now ensure that they at least are going to have serviceable play. Serviceable play. It's not going to be elite. It's going to be serviceable.
No, it's not protecting him.
Is it
boss.
protect Daniel Jones? It's protecting Drew Lock.
All right, let's see how that transpires.
You think that Daniel Jones is going to win the quarterback battle?
I have no doubt about that.
It's a quarterback battle. Oh my god!
And it's funny. The guy that you thought would be in a quarterback battle is actually not on your team anymore. So keep it hush hush.
Hey, buddy, you're the ones paying him $39 million. We're the ones paying him $1 million.
All right,
so,
enjoy him. Enjoy him.
We're not going to, but we'll
listen,
win more
we're
games
willing
in the
to
next
pay him
years.
to be on another team.
Well, the point is, for
Enjoy
a better
him.
team than you, and you're paying for
interesting.
97% of
I remember
So,
our
John,
last Super Bowl run.
You
guys
said-
were part of
Yeah,
that.
you're lucky because if we were healthy, the Broncos would have never won that Super Bowl for Peyton Manning. He would have one Super Bowl.
Tragic.
You're lucky because we would have cooked y'all. We almost
it's a
cooked y'all.
shame.
We basically cooked that defense, that pretty low defense.
feel bad, John.
Without Antonio Brown, Le'Veon
I
Bell,
know that
and
does
D'Angelo
suck
Williams.
that they weren't healthy.
You were not the best team in the
You
AC
guys
that
could've-
year.
you
You're the
could've.
third best team in the AC that
Right,
year.
and then what happened?
You beat the
Wait,
Patriots. You're the
third?
second best
Okay,
team.
I was gonna
You're the
say.
second best team in the AC that year. I apologize.
You guys
'cause
barely skated away from Cincinnati, but I was supposed to be scared of you guys.
Hello. That Cincinnati team was insanely good
Oh, okay,
defensively,
good. Okay.
and they had AJ Green on
All
offense.
right, I'm just saying, John.
And
I remember
they won
my
12
last Super Bowl
games.
run.
If
Do
I'm
you?
not mistaken, they won 12 games back in 20.
Were you actually alive to watch that?
I was 12 years old.
Oh,
I was
wow.
in the 7th grade. And yes, that's very disrespectful to say that. 'Cause I'm only 4 years younger than you. But a Bronco fan talking down on me right now.
I
is
was alive
wild.
and conscious to watch my
was as
team
well.
win a Super Bowl.
I was conscious, but I was not aware because I wasn't a football fan back in 2008.
Damn, so you weren't even a fan. That sucks.
It does suck.
I'm just saying, respect my fucking franchise, baby. And now my let me stop being a
don't.
dick.
I don't respect it.
Sorry, the fans are gonna go crazy
don't.
saying how mean to you, John.
So now, John, you said that there's two teams that we
Yeah.
got to mention.
we didn't
and
talk
I
about the
mentioned
Texans. Was the Texans one of those teams?
No, it was
I
not.
did talk about the Texans.
We'll talk about
Oh,
them.
did I? No, I
you
think I
didn't.
missed them.
Yeah,
The team that I chose was
I was
the Green-
expecting you to talk about the Texans because we spoke about it last
I
show.
thought you guys mentioned them. That's why they were the obvious pick for me.
They are an obvious pick.
I feel like the Texans were definitely winners of the offseason.
went crazy.
Daniil Hunter
Yep.
with Will Anderson.
Aziz Al-Shaair was a huge signing. Denico Autry.
Yes,
getting Jeff
Fadakazi.
Yep, getting
He's a
Jeff
good run defender.
Jeff Okudah on a 1-year deal.
I like
it. Add some
D'Amico
depth.
Ryans can do some things
He
out
is
there.
gonna do some
developing
things. I like that.
DBs. So I
Yep.
think that was a great move. And Okudah, he is a bit risky, it seems like, as like a press man corner. He loses sometimes, but he can win as well. He had the draft pedigree, so I'm curious to see how he develops.
Let me
But the
ask
team
you.
I had,
I'm sorry. Before you do that, let's stay on topic with the Texans real
Yeah.
quick. How'd you feel about them trading pick 23?
Wasn't the worst thing. I think they only moved back 20 spots.
I didn't love it.
I think for a team like that, like what's the Texans' hole right now?
They
I think
probably could have went all
Guard?
lineman was one that comes to
missed on
mind.
Kenyon Green.
really, I think their hole is probably another. They need a safety.
I was going to
They need
say
a safety.
secondary next to Jalen Petrie.
Yeah, Jalen Petrie, I don't even think is
You're not
like
a
a
fan of Petrie
long-term
anymore?
starter
Uh-huh.
anymore because he just misses too many tackles. You know, that's the risk with him. Where they're picking, they can get a safety, they can draft a corner. This wide receiver
go linebacker,
draft
they lost
is
Blake
with a lot of depth.
Blake
Yeah, so
Cashman.
they can draft a receiver. The linebacking draft class or the prospects in this draft class, they're not going to go high.
Low key, they're in that vicinity of the
Yes.
20 spots later.
So I feel like the Texans just looked at their first round pick and said, like, we don't need to reach on a player, or there's nothing here that is going to be here that we absolutely need to have. And that's why they were comfortable trading back.
It's a
20 spots.
very similar situation to the Packers, and it's ironic. I feel like a year ago we looked at the Texans and said, this team has so many holes. It was to the point some people thought, and I was kind of one of these people, they shouldn't take a quarterback and they're not ready. And a year later, they literally don't have a huge need, which is crazy to think. But the team that I had as a huge winner, which I just mentioned 20 seconds ago, is the Green Bay Packers. They made some moves. They let go of Aaron Jones. Of course, he goes to a division rival, but then you sign Josh Jacobs and you sign Xavier McKinney from the Giants. And part of why I think they're such a big offseason winner is because they add a new defensive coordinator and they're going to go with this single high safety scheme, which is press heavy. They're going to be a lot more blitz heavy, and that's exactly what they need with their personnel. But to add in McKinney, position of need was safety for them. They fix it. They get someone who's a surefire, very good tackler. They badly needed that the last couple of years, and honestly, like last decade, that's really come back to bite them in the playoffs. But then with Josh Jacobs, you get younger at running back, and if I'm not mistaken, it is only $12 million guaranteed on the deal. So if he does have a couple of injuries at 26, 27 years old, they're not going to have a cap hit or a dead cap, which is going to backfire on them.
Well, that leads me to the best deal of free agency. I felt like the best deal of free agency, just talking overall contract and just the caliber of player the team is getting, Xavier McKinney to the Green Bay Packers. Last year, their starting safeties were Rudy Ford, Jonathan Owens, Darnell Savage at times.
Yeah.
Darnell Savage was one of the worst tacklers at that safety position. Xavier McKinney, 116 tackles last year, 3 interceptions. He's a playmaker. He's one of the best safeties in coverage in the NFL. He was the 4th highest graded safety last season, 7 missed tackles on the season. Amongst safeties with 500 snaps, he was the 2nd lowest in missed tackle percentage at only 5.7%. And he allowed a 52.1 passer rating, the 4th best and number 1 coverage grade amongst safeties in the NFL, only allowed a completion percentage of 61.1%. So they are getting an elite coverage safety, an elite tackler, and like you mentioned, like, it's going to shore up their secondary and how they want to play with that edge and physicality. Jair Alexander, we know, is one of the better corners in the league.
Yes.
Eric Stokes should be healthy this year. That's going to add some more depth to their cornerback room. And I want to throw this name out there because I feel like this guy is going to really flourish next year, and he showed flashes this past season, and that's Carrington Valentine. Carrington Valentine was a rookie last season, and the toughness and physicality he plays with is notable. Last season, tight window rate leaders in man coverage. Number 1 was Michael Carter on the Jets. Number 2 was Joey Porter. Number 3 was Isaac Yiadom. Number 4 was Kendall Fuller. And number 5 was Carrington Valentine. 47.6% tight window rate. So this is a team that's going to be physical, and McKinney will just help that. Yeah. And I felt like this was the best signing. The Packers didn't make much free agent moves, but this one alone was
needle movers.
Impactful. Yes, exactly. They're super impactful and can change the landscape of your secondary.
It's going to be a different defense switching to a 4-3, and I just felt like if you can fill up your one position of need and you're protecting Jordan Love, this is what people expected the Jaguars to be. The leap of faith that everyone anticipated, that's what the Packers, I think, are going to take. That's my Super Bowl pick for 2024. I've got Green Bay winning the NFC.
Okay. They're going to have to beat the other team over there.
San Francisco. They were very close to doing so.
I'm talking about Detroit.
Oh, well, they definitely could have beat Detroit.
One of my favorite deals was Kendall Fuller getting 2 years, $16.5 million to the Miami Dolphins, especially after cutting Xavier Howard. You knew that they had a hole at cornerback. Kendall Fuller was great last year in coverage, one of the few bright spots of the Washington Commanders defense. But now you bring him over here alongside of Jalen Ramsey, Javon Holland. You add Jordan Poyer to that bunch too. We're talking about one of the better secondaries in the league. I mean, this really was a power move, getting the best available corner, of course not named L'Jarius Sneed, in free agency. This was a power move by the Miami Dolphins. They solidified one of their strengths already and made themselves one of the elite groups in the league.
They still lost so much, Miami. That's my one thing.
It's all right. I'll be honest. Wilkins sucks. Losing Wilkins sucks.
Robert Hunt
real
too, right?
hole is Robert Hunt.
Oh my God. The Jets signed Tyron Smith.
Dang!
Yo,
dang!
Let's fucking
That's
go!
A W.
Let's go!
That's a W.
Yeah!
That's a
Do we
dub.
have a new winner in this mix?
What's the deal?
I don't know.
Do they just have it that he signed?
They just have that he signed, but
It's
Tyron
funny
Smith
because
and Morgan Moses as their tackle duo. It's
That's a
older,
fact.
but
That is
is
older.
Game changer.
Tyron Smith, as long as he's
Oh
healthy,
my
we're talking very few
God.
better than him.
bro, we're talking about Tyron Smith. This is the Jets offensive line now. Tyron Smith, John Simpson, Joe Tittman, our rookie last year, AVT, Morgan Moses. We are protecting our quarterback next year.
So what's happening at 10 now?
Receiver.
Receiver.
We're going receiver.
Brock Bowers?
We could go Brock
Bowers
too.
would be firm.
Oh, man. No, this was huge.
Good move.
Joe
Good
Douglas
move.
was cooking. Yes.
And he got a backup quarterback, too.
Tyrod Taylor.
Taylor.
Yeah, you're right. The best quarterback
It's
in the
funny.
tri-state area last season.
Calm down. It's
Shout out to
funny
Riv.
because we just had conversations about how the Jets offseason was a little lackluster.
I had them as losers.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now we're switching
That
that
is
real
funny,
quick.
man.
Yeah, for me, I had them as losers, but this move right here, this is a win. And you know what I love about this move the most is that the Jets front office, they showed off their cojones.
They did.
They said, Aaron Rodgers, we're not going to get your best friend, David Bakhtiari, who hasn't even been on the field the last couple of seasons. We're getting Tyron Smith, who he misses time, but he's going to play 10-plus games. So the Jets front office said, we're not going for Aaron Rodgers' buddies. We're going for the best players available, and they land Tyron Smith, who he was the best free agent left.
He was.
Yes.
He was by far.
Or Justin Simmons.
Got to respect him for sure. But left tackle is such an unbelievable position.
It
I mean,
is. Would the Jets be in like your top 2 or 3 winners? Where would they rank and stack up to the other teams in the group?
don't overreact.
I think they'd be high. You got 2 really good tackles, and they had nothing at those positions.
If we're talking offseason, yeah, they definitely addressed a huge need of theirs because their offensive line was horrendous last season.
Well, these are my winners. The Buccaneers, the Jets are over them now. The Dolphins, the Jets are over them now.
Over the Bucks?
Yeah. The Tyron Smith signing moves me.
Fair. Okay, keep going.
Yeah, I mean, that was such a huge need, and we got the best player available at that position. The Kansas City Chiefs, I would still have the Chiefs.
Yep.
The Detroit Lions, it's close because, like, Carl Davis is a solid corner, but he can get burned. And Amik Robertson is, like, okay, but he's not a surefire. You can just start him, and he'll be fine. DJ Reader was a needle mover.
Hell yeah.
So it's really between what do I think was more impactful, DJ Reader for the Lions or Tyron Smith for the Jets. So I think I'd put the Jets over the Lions. The Vikings, if the Vikings figure out the quarterback, I would still have the Vikings over them. But I think that is just a concern. The Falcons, I'd still have the Falcons as a better team.
And the Texans.
And the Texans. Yes, I would.
Okay.
But the Jets, no, they've now
What about
become
Miami?
winners. No.
Yeah, knew that was happening. Knew that was fucking happening.
No. We got Tyron Smith. Come on.
You were the Giants.
Us. Bro, Tyron
I
Smith
agree.
is worth as much
I agree.
as all their signings.
I agree.
Like, literally.
I'm not going to disagree.
Like,
Tyron
I look
Smith
at
is huge.
outside of Brian Burns. Actually, if we're just looking at signings, Singletary, Aaron Stinney, John Runyon, Jalen Mills, Mackenzie Ulumnor.
You know, we do have to kind of see Brian Burns being a free agent because he did get franchise tag. Although it was a trade, they did give up a second-round pick for him. Yeah, I think Tyron Smith, for their positions, means more. As the respective players, honestly, Tyron Smith is on his way to Ken. He's a Hall of Famer. He's an elite left tackle in this game, still is. Just needs to be on the field.
Yeah.
If he can stay on the field, huge signing.
I feel like now, when it comes to the Jets, this just segues perfectly into a conversation we have to have about them. And is now that the offensive line is shored up when healthy, is this a team that we're looking at that's a contender in the AFC? If we're looking at the biggest threats to the Chiefs, are the Jets not a top 3 option?
I'm not hating. Wide receiver 2 is
We're going to get one.
okay.
We're going to get one.
Okay. If your offensive line stays healthy, AVT struggled, sadly. AVT's a great player when he's healthy. Tyron Smith has struggled. He's an elite player when he's on the field. Morgan Moses is a good right tackle for sure. We have to see if they can stay healthy. Let's live in that world for a second. Most definitely.
Because
you got your defense elite. Aaron Rodgers, your quarterback. Garrett Wilson's one of the best receivers in the game. Breece Hall's one of the best running backs in the game. And you're getting Breece behind a respectable offensive line now.
Yeah.
It's going to be scary.
I'm trying to be as even-keeled as possible when I'm making this assessment. The Houston Texans or the New York Jets. I feel like that's a bit of a toss-up. If I'm getting the Aaron Rodgers that I feel like I should be getting, I would go with the Jets.
I love it, but you have to go Houston. The coaching on offense, Nathaniel Hackett versus
it's Aaron Rodgers' offense. You know what that is.
It is, but this is Aaron Rodgers after a torn Achilles at 40 years old.
Our defense is better than the Texans, though.
Yes, but
was Aaron Rodgers a dog in 2022?
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers will now be better than C.J. Stroud. I would have C.J. Stroud above Rodgers in 2023.
Nico and Garrett Wilson.
You know I'm going Garrett.
Coin flip.
But I mean, hey,
but
I
respect
Texans
that.
weapons.
Nico Collins is
the
awesome.
Texans' weapons,
Yes.
the receiver.
What about our running game?
Yep.
That's true,
legit.
but what really matters most is that C.J. Stroud went through shit.
Joe Mixon.
All right.
Breece Hall. And
you know you got me. You know I
feel
love
like
Breece.
Joe Mixon's the definition of
Bro, we faced the Texans last year, and Zach Wilson lit them up.
They were hurt.
Okay,
they were hurt.
You got to factor
We
in
were hurt.
The amount of injuries the Texans' offensive line had, and C.J. Stroud still was literally perfect in that month.
All right, let me
versus
ask-
Aaron Rodgers'
okay.
bad offensive line in this stage of his career.
Our defense
Amazing.
is the best in the AFC. Actually,
No, it's not.
Chiefs
Baltimore.
are the Ravens' defense flat out better than the Jets'
I would
defense.
take them, but you're telling me you have good offensive play. We could see the Jets move into that top 2 spot.
The only defense in the AFC I'm flat out taking over the Jets' defense is the Chiefs' defense. That's really it. But even if you give our defense to the Chiefs, if you give our defense to Spags, he's going to cook up regardless. Like, I think that is a bit of a toss-up. So we have one of the best defenses in the AFC.
Definitely.
Our offense, with Rodgers healthy, and if we get another weapon in the draft, it could be up there with the Texans' offense.
No.
Yes, it can.
No.
It can. It can.
I don't see
Well, we're getting stuck on the Texans. So the Jets or the Texans next year, bigger threat to the Chiefs.
The Texans. Much higher. I think the floor at the Texans is way higher because I just anticipate things to go wrong for the Jets, and I hate to say that.
The Bengals or the Jets?
The Bengals. Healthy Joe?
Healthy Joe Burrow.
Defense is still a little bit ways away.
It is.
But they made some moves in this offseason. Yeah. I'm going to go Bengals out of respect for Joe Burrow.
What happens with T. Higgins matters a ton in this.
I don't think he gets traded.
Me either.
If T. Higgins sticks around for this year, I'll go with Cincinnati. If not, I'll go with the Jets.
For me, I'm going with the Jets because our defense is better, and the Bengals have yet to fix the offensive line in front of Burrow.
They did.
And they have made no move in free agency to address the offensive line. So for me, I'm going to go with the Jets because we just got Tyron Smith, and that's huge for our offensive line.
He should have been a Bengal.
He really should have. Next team, the Buffalo Bills.
Bills or Jets? Damn.
I don't know what the Bills are cooking this offseason.
Are the Jets better than the Dolphins and the Bills?
I won't say better than the Dolphins.
Well, if you say they're not better than the Dolphins, they're not better than the Bills. Because the Bills are better than the Dolphins.
Not going into this season, I don't think.
Why not?
They lost Jordan Poyer.
They lost Christian Wilkins. The Dolphins did.
Yeah, but
Connor Williams.
They also solidified their secondary. You bring in Jordan Brooks. Fangio is an L for sure, but I think you can live without him personally. And that's coming from a Broncos fan. I'm going to say no to both.
I will lean the Jets because I feel like this year for the Bills is really a gap year to try to get cap compliant.
As long as Josh Allen's on the field, they're going to play winning football, though.
They are. I kind of have an inclination of going Jets over Dolphins, toss up with the Bills.
I mean, you've yet to beat the Dolphins with Tua at the helm. So just get through that hurdle.
It doesn't matter to me.
That's that hurdle in its own right.
We've had no quarterback play. We've had nothing.
And
we've had no offense.
I was going to say, and the one time you did beat him was when Tua was hurt.
Yeah.
Still,
we've had no offense. Now, the last team I'll mention in the AFC, the Baltimore Ravens.
Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, Baltimore quite clearly.
I will say it will be interesting to see Lamar Jackson versus the Jets if they were to meet up in a playoff setting. No slights to Lamar, but they could get pressure on Lamar and really make him uncomfortable. That'll be an interesting game.
My question with Baltimore is, all right, Jadeveon Clowney is a free agent, probably not coming back, and they extended Justin Madubuike, but losing Mike McDonald, how big of an effect does that have? Because, hey, man, that was one of the 2 or 3 best DCs in football.
They lost a lot of players, especially on the defense side of the ball. Geno Stone, they lost Ronald Darby, they lost Patrick Queen, they're going to lose Jadeveon Clowney. You mentioned they lost Mike McDonald, their defensive coordinator.
Jadeveon's not signed and sealed that he's gone, but it is trending that way that he is gone.
Yeah, so, they lost a lot of talent for sure. I feel like the Jets are up there, though. I mean, this Tyron Smith signing is moving.
Yeah, I can tell, and I understand. I'd be fucking hyped, too.
But I understand, John. I don't want to get too excited.
1-year deal.
The last year I got excited, Aaron Rodgers tore his Achilles the first drive of football, of Jets regular season football, and it broke my heart.
Bro, I'm going to be honest with you. Tyron thinks you can win a Super Bowl.
Tyron Smith?
He signed a 1-year deal that could be up to $20 million. He thinks you guys can win a Super Bowl.
We can.
That would get me hype as fuck.
We can. I also think that no other team is probably giving him that.
You don't think the Bengals should have given him this?
Yes,
yeah, they should have.
But I feel like with the Bengals, it's a little bit tricky. And the reason why it's tricky is because they signed Orlando Brown last offseason to a huge deal.
Mid.
He is mid. Orlando Brown has been super vocal in the fact that he doesn't want to play right tackle. So if you bring in Tyron Smith, you could just say, you got to deal with it. You got to move to right tackle. Mm-hmm. But what if he doesn't take it well? And now you're paying a player that you can't move on from. I feel like for them, right now, I'm looking at the top free agent options. Trent Brown, is still out there, and he's somebody that could play right tackle, so he could be an option for them. We'll get to that in a bit, though. But, yeah, for the Bengals, I feel like they were in a bit of a tricky situation. But, maybe Tyron Smith saw both offers, and he said, I think the Jets got a better chance.
I mean, most definitely have a better chance. Your roster on the defensive side of the ball is up there with every single defense in the league. That is obviously of the upper echelon. You guys really are in competition for best in the game. Offensively, you have one of the better wide receivers, one of the best running backs in the game. You still have Aaron Rodgers. Tyron Smith now solidifies the offensive line.
I do worry at the Jets defense because of how much it's been on the field and just the risk of injuries because of how much they've had to basically overcome that offense being so bad. And that's like the one difference to me with them and teams like the Texans, where I'm like, the Jets defense is one of the 3 best in the AFC, but will it sustain it? Because that's the toughest thing. Can you have an elite defense for 3 or 4 years? There's also one more team, which you guys did mention. It was the Falcons for signing Kirk Cousins, but the underrated part of their offseason to me is getting 2 guys with a lot of speed and athleticism to be able to open up the offense and space the field. And that's getting Darnell Mooney and Rondale Moore for Desmond Ridder. That's going to open up so much. And I think Kirk's going to get the most out of those guys. And quite frankly, I don't know why necessarily the Cardinals trade for Desmond Ridder, because Rondale Moore hasn't necessarily been the right role, hasn't really been maximized. But in Atlanta, he could be. We'll have to see how the play calling is.
Another news that came out is that Mike Williams is visiting the Carolina Panthers next week. So that's another option for the Carolina Panthers. They can maybe sign. Let's get on to losers of free agency.
Okay. Obvious loser, Dallas Cowboys. Those brothers did not a damn thing. That's the obvious loser. Number 2. Now, this might be a hot take. I look at the Philadelphia Eagles, and I don't know if I'm going all in on them being winners. I really lean on the side of them being losers. Their biggest need was linebacker and secondary, mostly the cornerback position. Now, you bring in Devin White for $7.5 million. Don't hate the contract as a player. The options were there. I get it. You missed out on those opportunities. Devin White on a 1-year prove-it deal could be worse, but Joel's going to give you stats later. He was one of the worst tacklers in football and has been one of the worst tacklers since coming into the league. You didn't bring in a cornerback. You brought back C.J. Gardner-Johnson to play the safety position. Now, that was huge. I'll give them that. But your big move was Saquon Barkley and Bryce Huff. Now, Bryce Huff was a great ad. Saquon Barkley's going to make this offense explosive, but you gave a majority of the money that you had to spend to a running back.
Yeah.
Saquon's going to make this offense fun, for sure, but you lose Fletcher Cox, you lose Jason Kelce, both to retirement, and your secondary's still going to get exposed. Listen, we love Big Play Slay, friend of the show, obviously. He's
not the one we're
I'm
worried
always going to root for Big Play. He's not that same player that he was 2 years ago. And on the opposite side of him, who is there really to trust?
If you talk to Eagles fans, they'll say it's Isaiah Rodgers, who got suspended last season for gambling. Coming off a year without playing football, how good do you expect him to be? That's a question mark, and you can't just write that off as a sure thing. You mentioned Devin White. I don't think Devin White's a good player. I mean, since 2020, amongst all linebackers, 2023, he was the worst. 2022, he was the 4th worst. 2021, he was the 2nd worst. 2020, he was the 4th worst. The Eagles' problem last year was not only pass coverage, but also their run defense. I love the Bryce Huff signing. It brings much needed juice to the pass rush. But the reason why he didn't play much in the Jets, he didn't play a full amount of snaps, was because he is not good against the run. So the Eagles' run defense doesn't get fixed with Devin White coming in or Bryce Huff coming in, and they don't have another corner opposite of Darius Slay. I like the C.J. Gardner-Johnson move, but they still need to shore up holes. I think if you're an Eagles fan, the biggest thing you can hold your hat on is getting Kellen Moore and getting Vic Fangio. Kellen Moore, I think, is a good play caller. Vic Fangio, same thing on defense. But Vic Fangio last season, it wasn't until Jalen Ramsey came back to the defense when the Dolphins' defense was actually good. So it's like Vic Fangio needs the personnel in the secondary to maximize the defense. I don't think they're losers, but I definitely don't think they are winners of the offseason for signing Saquon Barkley and Bryce Huff, because the holes on their team are still evident.
To me, a big addition would have been them being the team to get Kendall Fuller. Now we're really talking, especially at the deal that Kendall Fuller ended up getting from the Miami Dolphins. You're telling me you couldn't allocate the money to him to get him in town? That's where I look at this team and think, hey, you made some needle-moving moves fair. I look at Saquon; he's going to make this offense expensive, but explosive. But we understand what giving significant amount of money to a running back can do to a team, and I just can't excuse the fact of your secondary was one of the worst in the leagues, and you essentially did nothing to add to it except bring back C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who missed a good portion of last season too.
My losers, you mentioned it, the Dallas Cowboys, easily losers.
Number one.
There's no doubt about it. The New Orleans Saints, because they restructured Derek Carr's contract, which means that he will be the starter next season. Committing to this mid-team, that's a loss in itself. The Jacksonville Jaguars, I think they're losers.
For sure.
Yeah.
They cut Darius Williams. They replaced him with Ronald Darby. I think Williams is probably a slightly better player at this point in time. They didn't sign back Ridley. They signed Gabe Davis. So now your receiving room, it got worse. Darnell Savage now replaces Rayshawn Jenkins. Darnell Savage was one of the worst tacklers at the safety position last season. The Eric Armstead signing and the Mitch Moore signing, those were really good. I think Eric Armstead gives them more pass rushing juice on that defensive line. But last season, the Jaguars' offensive line was one of the worst in the league. They brought back Brandon Scherf. You brought back Ezra Cleveland. And you still have your two tackles at those spots. All you did, you're banking on Mitch Morse changing and turning around your offensive line. Last year with the Bills, he was average. So counting on an average center to just come in and magically fix your offensive line, I think is a bad way to approach things. So I think the Jaguars were one of my losers in free agency.
Did you guys mention the Ravens yet?
No.
You didn't. They're an odd team because I think the Derrick Henry signing is sick, and he's going to be elevated by Lamar Jackson, of course, and he's a huge upgrade off of Gus Edwards to me. But losing Morgan Moses to the Jets is a very big loss at tackle. He's probably one of the more underrated players in football and has been like a key part of that offense. But then some other guys, of course, Geno Stone to a division rival in the Bengals, Patrick Queen to the Steelers, your Elise Odell. We were talking before about Clowney. We think he's going to leave, but we're not entirely sure. That was their season, 2023 that is, to actually go on a Super Bowl run and win it. And now that they didn't really capitalize, they're losing a lot of the key players who stepped up big time for them last year. And quite frankly, I just don't see the roster ever getting back to the point it was just at.
Can I ask, is there something to be said about the Ravens organization that 2 players left in free agency to division rivals? Is there something to look into that?
I mean, the teams are just willing to pay them the money.
That's a fact, but going from the Ravens to the Steelers, regardless of whether it's a real rivalry like it once was, that's pretty crazy in its own right. And then especially now with the Ravens and the Bengals, because that's been the teams going back and forth to win the division, from Geno Stone to go from the Ravens to the Bengals. What's going on? Am I just thinking too into it? Because you don't just go to a division rival. Look at Saquon Barkley, went from the Giants to the Philadelphia Eagles, and heads lost their mind, rightfully so. I only asked that because it didn't just happen once, it happened twice to 2 different teams.
There's maybe a layer to it. Mike Tomlin was talking about Patrick Queen not being a Raven. I think it was 4 years ago to say you don't belong over there. You need to be coming over here because they want him in the 2020 draft. But I just guess it really just comes down to the Steelers are willing to pay Patrick Queen more than any other team. And then for Geno Stone, he got 2 years, $15 million, and he wasn't a full-time starter for them last year. So I wouldn't read into it.
They just ran into the money.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point to make. To wrap up the show, we're going to talk about some top free agents still available and where we think they will sign. Tyron Smith, headliner of this,
congratulations,
signs
sir.
with the Jets during the show.
Yep.
Big time signing. Now, who are some other top free agents, and where do you think that they could potentially go?
So Chase Young's one that comes to mind. Obviously, young player, hasn't lived up to that potential that he was coming into the season, into his career, was the defensive rookie of the year, but wasn't able to stay on the field. One to look out for. Honestly, would not be surprised to see him go back to San Francisco to try and rekindle what they tried to achieve last season, or go into. The Steelers come to mind because Tomlin was one of those that really loved Chase Young as a prospect coming in, was saying, hey, I would have loved to, I can't lose enough games to get a player like you. But I just don't know with Highsmith, with TJ, if they would be willing to add another body to that, although it would solidify a great defensive front.
Nick Herbig's better. No, I'm not going to say that.
What do you say?
Nick Herbig's better.
And then the last one, the last one's going to be Trent Brown, of course. Now, offensive lineman, especially where he is of the older guys available, he is 30 years old. Team's looking for a right tackle. We've already spoken about it. The Cincinnati Bengals, that would be a great addition for them. Bringing in a guy like Trent just needs to solidify, put a body out there to protect Joe Burrow. And maybe, honestly, if you're the Jaguars, take a look into bringing him in, unless you're really deciding to allocate draft selections to solidifying that offensive line, which I believe they should.
So my top free agents would have to be, start on the defense side of the ball, Jadeveon Clowney and Justin Simmons. And then on the offensive side, I'm going to come back to who they're going to sign with my predictions in a bit. Mike Williams is a very big one to me because he was just released and he wasn't healthy last year. But I think there's so many different teams that could use his presence on the outside. And if he can get healthy, that is a really good number 2 wide receiver. And so there's a lot of different teams. One more name that stands out to me, going back to defense, is Steven Nelson from the Texans. He's now at the side of his career where, on the wrong side of 30. Not a whole lot of teams want to give him a long-term deal, but he was pretty solid for the Texans last couple of years, and there's a lot of teams that could use that mentor. I mean, if the Steelers could have signed him before they acquired Dante Jackson, would have been nice, but those are some of the names stand out to me.
For me, you mentioned it, Chase Young. I feel like Chase Young would be perfect with the Atlanta Falcons.
Okay.
They need some edge rushing help badly.
You know what one came to mind, actually? Ironically, the Ravens. Ravens really could use that, especially if you're not going to have Jadeveon Clowney back. You go and you bring in a younger replacement. But I like the Falcons for sure. That's a good spot.
The Falcons, to me, I feel like the only thing that's holding them back from being a legit NFC contender is having an edge rushing presence. If they can add one, you get Chase Young, and I would double dip, and I would who?
And you have Arnold Ebiketie too on the other side.
Oh no! I'm not counting him.
Okay.
Yeah, not no more.
Yeah. Did he have a season that turned you off?
This past season, he didn't break out.
Okay.
Yeah, he was just.
He was one of your breakout candidates.
No, he was, but he just didn't break out.
As number 2 edge rusher.
No, yeah.
And year 3, he's going to year 3.
Number 3, number 4 edge rusher, maybe not number 1 or 2.
Okay.
If I was the Falcons, I would sign Chase Young and I would draft Dallas Turner. I would double dip on that position because that's the biggest position of need, in my opinion, for their team. Trent Brown at right tackle. I feel like the Bengals. That's a perfect spot. They lost Jonah Williams to the Cardinals, so now you have a hole at tackle.
For sure.
And I think that they need a guy like that. Mike Will, you said it perfectly. I really would like to see him in Carolina. I really like that.
That'd be a great fit
match.
next to Deontay.
Yes.
It'd be much like him and Pickens.
Let's get him to Denver.
No, let's not do that.
Please. I need somebody.
No, you don't.
Fuck you, John.
I just wonder where Tyler Boyd is going to go.
Dallas.
You think so?
That's going to be their big move. Tyler Boyd.
You could see Tyler Boyd in Los Angeles get that $29 million cap space, but the Bengals still have $33 million per spot rack. I'm going to check over the cap. I think there's a good chance Tyler Boyd still resigns if they've got that much.
That'd be good. If they could bring back Tyler Boyd, get Trent Brown.
They signed Tyler Boyd, though. T. Higgins is definitely not coming back.
They lost DJ Reader, but they have Sheldon Rankins. They have BJ Hill there. I think right now they're currently in a visit with Tier Tart.
Are the Bengals trending down?
Yeah, they are. Yeah,
in terms of their free agency, I was talking
just
to
as
Joel
a
about
team.
this.
It's
I
the
do
vibe.
wonder how Burrow comes back from his elbow injury. Because from the studies,
Are we labeling
Elbow
out?
was a wrist.
Wrist, yeah.
it was wrist. Sorry,
Are
I'm
we
mixing up with
labeling
Big
Joe
Ben, my
Burrow
fault.
injury prone?
He is injury prone.
He has
Damn.
unfortunately kind of put himself in that conversation. But you're right. Elbow, wrist.
Uh-huh.
I keep mixing up his injury with Big Ben's because they're very rare and they're in the same division, obviously. But it's just going to be, can Burrow come back with the same level of just arm talent down the field? And that's my biggest question can they sustain this contention window? And I hope they do.
Imagine
As a Steelers
it was
fan, I
a
hope they do.
career-altering injury. That would fucking suck.
Okay.
3-4 years into his career and that's it? You can't throw the ball the same way? Then you got bigger problems. He should be okay.
I
It's
hope
not
so.
as bad as a hand injury.
No, for sure.
No, it's just a wrist.
Nah, but listen,
Wrists
I got a
matter.
wrist injury.
Wrists matter.
That
a
shit
lot,
sucks.
Man. They do matter.
I can't lift the same way because of it.
Listen, we know Joe Burrow.
I'm no NFL athlete, though.
I think the Bengals are trending downwards, but that's because, you're paying guys. That's why you got to maximize a rookie quarterback
So they
window. They made Super Bowl and they lost. They lost to the better team.
Shout out my
Aaron Donald,
dogs.
Von Miller. It was a super team.
Shout out my
What you wanna
dogs.
do?
Throw up the Ramley in support of Joel not being
But
here.
you know what though?
Oh wait,
I will say
Come on,
this.
just
Shit.
drop the thumb.
The
Throw
thumb's
up the
covered out.
index.
Okay.
Okay, John,
Wait.
this is not that fucking hard.
Wait.
Man. There it is. Nice.
There you go. Am I doing it right?
John, you
Throw
just give me
thumb?
throw the thumb over the two fingers,
this,
please,
bro.
for the love
Oh,
of
shit.
God.
Well, this is my first time doing it, so
Fucking hell, wasn't
Like
that
this.
hard?
What's happening with the Bengals is no different than what's happening with the Dolphins.
How do you say? Yeah, okay. All right,
You lost Christian Wilkins.
that's fair.
That's
Christian
a bigger
Wilkins
loss
was
than
a
DJ Reader.
Oh, I thought you weren't this huge fan of Christian Wilkins.
No, I love Christian Wilkins. I'm not a huge fan of the contract he got with the Raiders. That's why.
They
Because
did low-key need him.
what they did, but what else have the Raiders done this offseason? That was their only move.
That was it.
Yeah. And, like, I don't know.
Vegas fans legitimately believe they can contend.
No, they can't.
They can't.
They can't
I know.
at all.
But Vegas fans are convinced.
you know what though? The Raiders have a very good roster. They just don't have a quarterback.
Well, that's the
at all.
problem.
And
Yeah.
that's what matters most.
How can you contend
But-
without a QB?
What I'm saying is that they are a quarterback away from being a playoff team.
Are they about to rip my heart out and draft Michael Penix? Because I say that because I don't want
Penix
to
your
root against
draft
him.
crush?
No, he's my guy. Lefty brothers for life.
Okay. I always forget you're left-handed. I've never hooped with you, never played football with you, but
You seen the tape, bro?
I have seen the tape. I didn't know Drew could really shoot like that. I didn't know he's got a little ratchet on him.
People, they look at me, man. It's sad.
I wasn't familiar with your game.
I appreciate that.
How's your season?
acknowledgement.
I don't want to get.
Oh, we
I
went
wasn't familiar with the game.
Is your season end?
Oh, we won 0-7.
Already? No, dead ass.
I swear to God.
What were you guys missing?
John,
Yeah, facts.
You a shot creator?
No, we needed a big.
are you a shot creator? What's your play style, John?
A mix of shot creation and playmaking. It depends though. Like I cannot shoot outdoors, but I can shoot very well indoors.
Okay.
But the weird thing is that it depends. So like right now, I play in the summer and the spring, and I can shoot very well outdoors. But when I go back in the winter outdoors, obviously like with the wind and shit, I just can't make a
Makes
shot.
sense. Any normal
But-
human being.
But I do play a lot in the winter, so
All right.
that's kind
Can you
of like
play
in the
defense?
November months. I can, but I'm a guard though, so like I can't guard fives and fours.
So
I
they
can
have
only
me
guard
guard.
guards and wings.
They have me doing that. I'm literally our Draymond
Right.
Green.
Right.
So you can guard
not
guards. You
Draymond.
can
but really,
stay on the perimeter.
I'm a seasonal shooter though. If that what I'm basically saying to you,
I am most definitely not Draymond.
because you can shoot. So you're like 2016 Draymond.
That's what the brother gets it.
I can see you being a crafty passer and some high lows. Little
Bro, my
DHO
passing
actions, little
is
give and goes.
really good. I
I
do
could
have
definitely
the strap.
see Drew getting like a lot of bonus assists. A lot of
Would you be
screen
down
assists.
to join Riv and Drew's team?
Dude, I would love to. We should record that too. I would love to.
Drew might be down. I don't know about Riv. You know,
Yeah.
Riv is kind of picky with
He-
his
yeah,
teams.
he is.
Is he?
He also
well, then
has-
I have to 1v1 him then if I beat him on
Talk
the
your
team.
shit, John.
As simple as that.
You think it would be Riv 1-on-1?
I haven't seen him play, but I love to play him.
I've heard
I
that
would
he
love to play him.
can't shoot.
He can't shoot.
No, he can't shoot.
I know.
That brother's
I have
jump
that
shot is
feeling.
broken.
I have
sadly.
that inclination.
Would you
from what I've
disrespect him and just leave him open?
heard. Yes.
Okay. So
But
you would,
I would.
You know
I
what's
wouldn't-
funny?
Okay, but I wouldn't
Bro,
be disrespectful.
we
though.
ran once.
I would play off, but I wouldn't be
We,
disrespectful.
you know, when you do that, you do the 3 dribbles, and then you know if you miss other person's ball, vice
Yeah.
versa. So he goes to me and he guards me. he protects my left and he forces me right. That's fine. So then it's his shot. I just go and I just crash to the paint. I just let him stay at the top of the key.
let him
I
take
say,
an open
go ahead
three?
and shoot this shot.
Did you give him like an open?
No, I gave him an open 3.
Oh,
Because
okay.
he could have came into the midi if he really wanted to.
that's disrespectful.
But it was
You
one of
didn't want
those
to take
just
it,
like
though.
he just took the 3 and he missed, and then I made my next shot.
so that's how you got to play him. That's the game plan to beat a Riv.
Well, I wouldn't be that though.
You should
I would
do
actually
it.
guard him.
Because if you went and got disrespectful with Riv off rip, he'd be shook because he's like, "Yo, John's getting fouled with me. Nah, I gotta lock in." You could throw him off his game with that shit.
I definitely could. I can guard though. I can guard up.
All right.
you think
although-
I've heard that Riv's a good defender, though. Do you think you would get buckets on him?
You know, it definitely depends.
He's like the Pat Bev type of defense, though. Like,
Yeah.
he just gets mad physical with you. He gets all up in your face.
Yeah, so I've been playing a lot at school, and I play a lot of football players, like kids that like will generally foul and play very.
So you're saying these
physical.
guys are tougher than Riv?
No, what
football
I'm saying
players.
is that like it
Sounds like it.
depends on who I'm playing against. If I'm getting like grabbed and stuff, and like I can't drive, then I'm just gonna be a shooter. So it depends on the type of day. I'm a seasonal shooter. Like
Okay.
in high school, I could shoot consistently, but now I can't. I'm either broke or I'm making everything.
Okay.
So
Well, yeah, you definitely need to face Riv 1-on-1 then.
I would love to
Yeah.
soon as well.
He wants to get it done
Riv,
early.
this is a message for Riv. I want to 1v1 you in hoops, and if I beat you, I'll play on your guys' team. And
My
if you
God.
beat me, then I won't play on your
So
team.
John is essentially demanding a spot. 1-on-1.
No, not
He's
the
not
five-
demanding a spot. No, if he wins, It's not
he wants to
demanding. He
earn a
gets
spot.
it. Exactly.
He's saying
Granted.
he wants if I beat you 1-on-1, Riv, I join your team.
Granted, if Riv wants me playing the team too without being in 1v1, I'd be happy to.
Do you think Riv would just accept that wholeheartedly without would you have
After you just called him out, no.
would you have
gonna have to
would
play
you
him
have more love and respect for Riv if he just said, John, come along. You're on
Oh,
the team.
definitely. That'd be nice, but you don't have to do that. I'd want to 1v1 y'all. I mean, I don't know.
Listen, I
whether-
had to try out for the team.
Did you?
Low key.
Really?
I had to try out, like,
What is
not
that
like a
tryout?
formal tryout. It was just like we were at LA Fitness. We were hooping.
Right.
And I was nice. He realized that, and he was just like, yo, Drew, you're playing? I was like, I don't know. I got to think about it. And he kept asking. I was like, you know what? Let's do it. I was happy I did it. I balled the fuck out.
Who was the better of the two of you? That's my real question.
It was tough because some games I was better than him. He had one game specifically. It was like it was a combination of two games because it was the same day that he was better. For a majority of the season, it was pretty close. I would not take one over the other, but for a good amount of the games, I did score more points.
Okay.
But he does a little bit more on ball than I do.
Yeah, there's more to scoring, of course. If you need a shooter, I got you. And if you need a shot creator, I got you. And if you need a defender on the ball, I got you too.
You got
All right.
any video clips of you playing?
I do. But here's the thing. In high school, I played off the ball entirely. So if I were to show you video clips, it's dead ass just me taking a million corner threes and making all of them.
Okay.
But
Do you know the percentage you
That's
shot on them?
actually me though. Right now,
my
that's
senior
me.
year was like 12 games. I shot like 50% from three and took
Wow.
like 3 shots a game.
That's pretty great.
I didn't-
50% is really good.
I
You
only
need
started
that.
a couple of games my senior year. I came off the bench, and when I did, so we had 3 guards that were all starting. And so when I came into the starting lineup, we'd start 4 guards, and if I was on the bench, we'd have 3 guards in the game at all times. So I was like the best shooter of our group, so I always played off the ball. And I also was like the worst of the passers as well, so that's part of the reason why. But passing was not necessarily my forte.
Okay. Yeah, that's really my role right now. I kind of just wait, spot up in the corner because my dribbling needs to get better.
Right.
It's improved that the season had gone on, but I stay at that wing. I stay in that corner. That right wing is my fucking bread and
Yeah.
butter. That is automatic.
Okay.
But yeah,
Sounds good,
there's always
John.
a role.
I'm
Sounds
looking
good,
forward
John.
to this. I want to see y'all play more than
I
anything.
think what I would have done, the approach I would have taken if I was you, would have been, hey, Riv, would love to play on the team. And then if
Okay.
Riv said no,
Here you go. Let
then
me
you
try
could have
this
been like
again.
1v1. But
Hey, Riv,
now,
can I
what you,
please play on your team? Hey Riv, can I please play on your team?
there we
Thank
go.
you.
That's a good one. I like that. I feel
I
like
also
he'll be-
want to 1v1 you too.
Okay, well, there you go. Now, now we're back to actually having to play.
Oh, man. And that's going to do it for this episode of the Pick a Side Podcast, episode 363. You guys can follow us on Twitter at PickASide Pod, on Instagram and TikTok at PickASide Podcast. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.